I'd like to call the regular meeting to order this Pearl Beach City Council. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Councilmember Bragg.
Here.
Councilmember Spriggs.
Here.
Councilmember Bilbray.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Patton.
Here.
Mayor Janney.
Here. I'd like to thank everyone for being here. We do have a fairly full agenda, but I'm sure that as normal, people will cooperate and hopefully we can move through it and get everything done on the agenda. Could you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to agenda changes. Do you have any agenda changes for my colleagues? Mr. Patton, I understand you would like us to view the video on the host committee to the Olympics.
Yeah.
Before consent. Okay, well, we have next crowd. Thank you. Mayor, council reimbursements, disclosures, community announcements. Ms. Bragg.
Thank you. I just wanted to remind everybody that the EDCO on our homefront cleanup date is Saturday, May 3rd, from 7 to 2 p.m. in front of Mar Vista High School. And then also that our citywide yard sale is April 26th. Have a good time out there.
Mr. Spriggs. Nothing, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
The time is here. We have our Easter egg hunt coming up this Saturday, and Evie Razmeyer, or Razier, along with countless volunteers, are going to put a zillion eggs out. They're looking for volunteers. Show up around 8. The hunt starts at 10, and some false advertising that it said it goes from 10 to 10:05. I think it's like 10 to 10:01. So, get there early.
Just like to say that I had a trip last week and a half ago with the mayor of Tijuana, and he has actually agreed to come visit our city. He has not been here. He's a practicing physician in Tijuana. Very busy man, but he would like to see it. So hopefully I kind of promised him I'd visit him first and then he'd take a trip up here to see us. And then I don't want to take the thunder away from the city staff, but Mr. Wade has some very good news on us as far as what we've been able to negotiate with the Department of Finance concerning our redevelopment. Thank you, Mr. Wade.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Just wanted to let you know that we got word from the Department of Finance today on our next recognized obligation payment schedule, effectively approving every item, the most important of which was repayment of the city loan back to the city. The first amount of the payment would be $1,115,215. So that begins the first pay down of the $3.7 million that the city is still owed by the former redevelopment agency. So that's a big deal. Most of the city loans throughout the state are not being approved, mostly because of interest payments due and whatnot. But ours sailed through, and we should be getting paid June 1st, the first installment.
Thank you. I think for those that aren't aware that the efforts of Mr. Wade, our special counsel, and especially with the assistance of Tony Atkins, our representative in Sacramento, assembly member, she did a lot with her staff. Her staff did quite a bit to help us on that. I think it really will make a difference in the long run. So, Mr. Hall, do you have anything this evening? Moving on to public comments and items not on the agenda, and I'd like to invite Shirley up to talk to us about some seat.
Thank you. Do I state my address?
Name and address, please.
Thank you. I'm Shirley Knock, Waterway at 923 Seacoast Drive. I've come to talk to you about the Sun and Sea Festival. For those of you who don't know, way back around 1960, the Sun and Sea Festival started here in Imperial Beach. It developed into a sandcastle competition, and it really sprung into action with the enactment of the U.S. Sandcastle Committee. They were tremendous in building this and making Imperial Beach a landmark for the nation for sandcastle building. Unfortunately, a few years ago, the Sandcastle Committee disbanded, and we looked around at our community and we thought about what could we do to resurrect what we used to think of as our hometown festival. I know even 10 years ago, Lori and I had stuck our heads together about, well, what can we do about getting a parade together? What can we do about getting our community back together? Well, I'm delighted to tell you that the volunteers of our community have come together, and we are going to have the Sun and Sea Festival again this year. It's going to coincide with the Imperial Beach birthday, which is July 19th. And so, by the community and for the community, we have on July 18th, our mayor is doing the Mayor's Breakfast again. Thank you so much, at the Port Plaza. The Boys and Girls Club will be having the Sandcastle Ball that evening. On Saturday morning, which is July 19th, our birthday, we're going to be having St. James Lutheran Church presenting a pancake breakfast at the Pier Plaza. The parade will start at Mar Vista, go down towards the beach and wrap up around the fleet. Then we'll have the Sandcastle competition. We're going to have everything all together at once. We're going to have the amateurs, we're going to have the masters, and we're going to have the kids. And we're going to have it all around the beachfront. We're hoping to make this a smaller, more hometown type of event. Our population, we figure, is from the beach to East Side B, which ends at about I-5, right? So we're thinking we'll have a nice little hometown event. Forget what we did in the past with the vendors and all that. Think about more of a farmer's market with a little bit more flavor. And that's what we're proposing and we're planning on doing. I see so many dedicated volunteers in this room here who are sitting on the Sandcastle Committee. And I really want to thank not only the historical folks that have made this happen, Karen Bilbrave, phenomenal, Bud Harbin, so many people in the past who have gone before us and have helped make Imperial Beach just a real recognized city for our Sandcastles. So I'd like to thank the committee members that are serving today. But honestly, we would not be as successful as we are if I couldn't just put my hands together and thank Tom Clark. He is incredible. Tom Clark, and everyone's heard me talk about Hank Levine. These folks along the Sheriff's Department and other folks over in public safety have been a huge, huge, huge help in making sure that this thing becomes cohesive and really works for our community. So I want to thank you, and I hope to see you all out in the sand.
I specifically thank yourself and your co-chair and all the members of your committee that have really worked so hard on this. I know it's very difficult. Volunteers are the folks that you really can't fire, but we expect a lot of you, and thank you very much for stepping up to the plate on that. Moving on to other public comments, we're going to have a presentation by, we get Kirby from the Del Mar Felgrams.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. My name is Kirby Chalman, and on behalf of Del Mar Fairgrounds, I'd like to invite the City of Imperial Beach to the 2014 San Diego County Fair. This year's theme is the Bab Fair, so we're going to be paying tribute to the Beatles and the 50th anniversary of the British invasion. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a great time. Last year we had over 1.3 million visitors, which is actually another great year, and bringing kind of some family fun to the San Diego summers. And this year, our values and deals are, as you guys can see up there, we are still offering the best pass ever, which is 24 days, $24, which is an awesome deal. If you're going to be planning on going more than once, that is awesome. And then also, our partner Albertsons is going to be giving away $4 tickets. So that's another great discount, only $14 to get in. And we are continuing having the Fair Tripper ticket, which connects patrons with public transportation to and from the fair for only $15. Normally it's $15 to get in, but or $14 to get in. With that, it's only $1 extra. You get the coaster, the Sprinter, and the Breeze. So that's another great option. Our Toyota concert series is filled with some great acts this year. We have the country acts of Darius Rucker. We have Hunter Hayes, the comedian Jeff Dunham, and the Beatles tribute band Fab Four is playing on June 26th, and that's going to be another great event. We also have festivals at the fair. This year we have 3 headlining festivals. The first is the San Diego Beer Festival. That is going to be having 200 local breweries as well as across the state and abroad even offering 400 different types of beers on tap. That is from Friday, June 20th to Sunday the 22nd. And the next is the Toast of the Coast Wine Competition and Festival, which is held on June 14th. That is going to be in the beautiful flower garden of the grounds. There we go. And that's June 14th, 2 sessions, and that's going to be in the flower garden, which I know if you guys have been there, it's an awesome place to be. And the final festival is Bacon Fest. Bacon Fest is back. That's July 5th. That is a great event. It fills up the fair with a great smell of bacon, which nobody can really resist. And we also have our contests and exhibits are back, and those are going to be all kind of specific for that British invasion and anniversary of the Beatles and things like that. So be sure to check those out. And also the animals and agriculture are of course going to be there. Sophie Swine, pig racing is going to be back, bigger than ever. And we also have a couple of competitions. We are giving away a trip to Liverpool. So kind of trying to get people to get across the pond, as you can say. We're going to have the contestants applying starting probably mid-May on sdfair.com. And also the millionth visitor. We've had the opportunity to have a million plus visitors each year now for probably about 10 years. And so this year we're going to pay tribute to them and give them a little special recognition for that one lucky person who walks through the gate. And also, please visit stfair.com, you guys. There's plenty of events, calendars, things that are going on in the arena, the Demolition Derby, Monster Jam, stuff like that. So be sure to check stfair.com. And finally, the dates. June 7th to July 6th. You might notice it's a little bit longer this year. We are getting rid of the first 2 Tuesdays of the fair. Normally it's just Mondays off, but we're doing the first 2 Tuesdays, and that's going to extend us past the 4th. And we hope to see all of you guys there. Thank you, guys.
The honor of the Fab Four, I understand it's America's own 50th year for the Mustang, too.
Oh,
They're not British.
we have the car show every day at the arena. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that. June Engel?
Hi, I'm June Engel. I'm branch manager at the Imperial Beach Library in Imperial Beach Boulevard. I know you're probably all thinking I'm here to talk about the library. Actually, I'm not. I had the honor of going down to the supervisors meeting this morning. They had a proclamation for this month. April is Volunteer Appreciation Month. And along with that proclamation, they recognize about 32 volunteers, outstanding volunteers in our communities throughout the county. And I wanted to point out or share with you that one of those volunteers is actually here in our community. And so I'm going to have you stand up, please. This is Nancy Stone. She is the president of our Friends. She is at every single library event that we have. She is a very great spokesperson for our library. And I'll tell you one other thing outside of what she's doing for the community here. She also fosters families and gets them and finds homes for them. So Nancy, I'm extremely proud of you, and I wanted to share that with you guys, that she was recognized. Only 6 people in the county library were accepted, and so yeah, you're very special. And I brought a
Mark Perlman?
Good evening, Mayor. With the City Councilman, Mark Perlman. I'm with Tuna Grove Communities, 2216 NCS Boulevard in Esquitas. And I just want to let you know that we are we're the group that's proposing to develop the Bernardo Shores RV Park, and we are hosting a presentation and workshop next Tuesday evening, April 22nd, across the street at the Marina Vista Center. And I just want to let you know, and also let the community know, we sent out about 840 postcards to everybody around that whole area. I just wanted to kind of get the word out. That's it.
Thank you very much, Mark. We appreciate you reaching out to the community that way, and hopefully with you coming here, and we'll get the city to put it on our website, that that's something that everybody should attend that can. So thank you very much.
Yeah, more and better. All right, thank you.
Honorable Brian Bilberry?
Brian Bilbray, 1307 9th Street. Frankly, Mr. Chairman, I was going to come here tonight to compliment the city, but I couldn't find parking tonight, so I'm here to complain.
That was intentional.
But seriously, a few weeks ago, I was giving a talk to the local Hawaiians, and I made the point about us, the city council and the staff will hear people come up to this podium and say, I have a right to stand here and complain. And we all know that's true. But frankly, we forget that with those rights come responsibilities. And I think one of the responsibilities we should have is, if we want to have credibility when we want to complain, we should come in and compliment when there is compliments due. And I just got to tell you, spending the last year being able to finally have some time to stop and smell the roses, my wife and I have had the time to look around, be able to enjoy having our own time and being in the community more than we were in the past. And let me just tell you something. As somebody who sat where you are, I know there was a lot of work done by other people. And I know that a lot of efforts have been made that weren't successful. But if you drive around Imperial Beach today, and I say this as somebody who's been here since '51 when I was brought home from the hospital at North Island, I don't think any of us can say that the city has ever looked better, actually been in a better shape, considering the fact that this city has the lowest revenue sources of any city in the county. In fact, the only city that has less of a revenue system than the county of San Diego. I know there must be potholes out there. There must be terrible conditions somewhere. But as somebody who's got the time to drive around, look around, talk, it's looking better than it has ever looked. And so when we stand up here and complain, just remember, some of us just want to remind you that with all the hell you take and all the complaints you get, job's looking pretty darn good. And if you would have told some of us in 1978, after Proposition 13, that the city would be looking as good as it is right now, in fact, I don't know how many people know that the media is carrying a message saying that the lowest liability for retirement in the entire county is the city of Imperial Beach. And so I think it's time somebody stands up and, seeing that I've got the time now, I want to say congratulations, not just to you, but because you're here, you're going to take the blame for all the bad things somebody else might have done. You're going to take some benefits too in the fact that congratulations on a job well done and keep it up. Thank you very much.
Moving on to presentations, we'd asked to take the little video for the Summer Olympics prior to consent. As a consent item. We have that. Maybe we'll queue up. Please, Mr. Pat.
So I saw this video, and their goal is to get San Diego on the so-called short list, with about 4 or 5 cities. And yeah, it's a big task, but if you look at this video when it's done, you'll see that our city has just about every venue, if you tap into different colleges and whatnot, other than about 4. So it's not a far-fetched idea. So I thought it was pretty exciting, and I thought you might like the video.
Stunning vistas, incredible climate. Everyone knows this San Diego. But have you met this one? It's an economic powerhouse, an incubator of amazing technologies driving an annual GDP exceeding $200 billion and growing every day. It's a hub of arts and education, from the nation's largest urban cultural park to 5 world-class universities. It's dynamic, diverse, and according to Forbes, America's most inventive city. Surprised? Don't be. It's who we are, and the reason why San Diego is the best choice to make the 2024 Summer Olympics and Paralympic Games a spectacular global success. In San Diego, we don't just talk multicultural, we live it. Every day, 6.5 million of us from 200 countries in a mega region describe the busiest border in the world. We thrive on the cutting edge of the Pacific Rim, generating unprecedented trade, tourism, and sports innovation. We research, develop, manufacture, and use the technologies that help make athletes healthier, safer, faster, stronger, and ever more competitive. We welcome change, We accelerate progress, and we love sports. We've hosted Super Bowls, World Series, FIFA World Cup events, an iconic U.S. Open, the America's Cup, and so much more. We run, we swim, we ride. Heck, we invented the triathlon, perfected Olympic BMX, and launched the X Games concept. We're home to one of our nation's 3 Olympic training centers, and proud that more than 90 Olympians began their quest right here. In San Diego, we embrace the Olympic ideal. We live the Olympic spirit, and we're primed, pumped, and ready for 2024. More than 80% of necessary proposed venues are already in place. Hotel capacity far exceeds requirements. Our regional transportation network is first rate, soon to be enhanced by $17 billion in new projects. Security, critical and covered. A major U.S. Navy and Marine Corps presence helps make San Diego one of the safest places on the planet. Oh, and that famous weather, unrivaled. Lots of sunshine, less humidity, promoting an active outdoor lifestyle, attracting athletes from all over the world. Conditions ideal for record-breaking performances in a picture-perfect setting. We are the mega region of San Diego. Inventive, inclusive, committed. The right people in the ideal place to host the 2024 Summer Olympic and Paralympic Games.
That was a very interesting video, and I was actually there with Mayor Pro Tem when this was displayed one time. It really makes the San Diego region look very well. It's not something they're looking for next year or anything. They're planning way in the future. But their message of what San Diego is like, I think, is really important. That's what it's about. So thank you for bringing that forward. Moving on to consent items 2.1 through 2.5. I'd entertain a motion. We have a motion and a second. And before we go for the vote, the warrant register this month has been changed a little bit. Our new Administrative Services Director has added some pieces to explain a little bit better how the money goes in the warrant system. So it's something that, not just for the council, but for the public, it makes it a little bit easier to read. So just for a note on that item. So we have a motion and a second. Will we please vote?
Motion carried unanimously.
Moving on to item 4.1, public hearing. I declare the public hearing open. Mr. Hall.
And Council, the first public hearing tonight is on the Assessment District 67M that provides the lighting along Palm Avenue. This is a public hearing. I think you're familiar with this. This is a continuation of an assessment district that's been in place for many years. If you have any questions, of course, we have a Public Works Director, Mr. Hank Levine, that can answer any questions that you might have. And other than that, this is, I think, relatively routine for the City Council.
I do believe it is, Mr. Hall. Madam Clerk, do we have any speaker slips in public testimony?
No, Mr. Mayor.
In that case, I close the public hearing. Ms. Bragg?
Thank you. Mr. Hall, I just, for the record, if you would state the boundaries of the assessment district you said along Palm Avenue, I just want to make sure that everybody's clear of what those boundaries are.
Yeah, I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Levine to do that.
Councilmember Bragg, the boundaries are Highway 75 from Georgia Street west to Rainbow Drive on both sides of the street. And all properties that front Palm Avenue or Highway 75 are included in the district. If you're not fronting Highway 75, you're not part of the district.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to kind of talk about this just a little bit. We've been discussing lighting districts for a while now on the council, and this particular assessment district has been in place here in Imperial Beach for many, many years. And this is, just for the audience's sake, this is just an item that we go through every year, and it's on our agenda, and the rates have not changed with this lighting district, I think, since its inception.
That is correct, and it was started in 1992.
Okay, great, thank you.
Do we have any further comment on this item? Then I entertain a motion to approve and adopt Resolution 2014-7473. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Will you please vote?
Motion carried unanimously.
Moving on to item 4.2, public hearing. I declare public hearing open. Mr. Hall.
Mayor and Council, next item is the Regional Transportation Congestion Improvement Plan fee, which is a fee that's charged again along Palm Avenue, and that is for improvements that are made to help offset some of the road improvements. And so for a short presentation on that, I'll turn some time over to Mr. Levy.
Again, this is a one that you've seen every year. It's a execution or the follow-through of a Transnet Prop A County of San Diego initiative from 2006. It went into effect in 2008. The fee was set at $2,000 per single-family residence built anytime after July 1, 2008. The Transnet ordinance had a provision that annually the fee of $2,000 must be adjusted upwards a minimum of 2%, or the construction industry index for inflation, whichever is greater. And since the inception, there has not been an index greater than 2%. So every year we've been required to increase it by 2%. For this year, we are required to increase it to $2,254 per single-family residence constructed in the city, starting July 1, 2014. SANDAG requires us to submit a resolution affirming that we have done this by July 1 of this year. And if the city were to decide not to participate in this, we would be exacted, or we would be required to pay that same fee to SANDAG or to the regional area out of our general fund or whatever fund source we wanted to use, because we do not have a way to opt out of it. This fee is to be used on a regional transportation network. In the city of Imperial Beach, only Highway 75 is a regional arterial in the county. In our city, it's from the county. You approved a plan that was submitted to SANDAG on April 1st, or before April 1st of this year, that these funds would be expended on a project for either pedestrian, bicycle, public transportation, get it right, in the area between 9th Street and 7th Street on Highway 75. To date, you've accumulated, this is as of the time I wrote the report, you've accumulated $46,510. So those funds, when expended, would be expended in that area according to the plan you have. If you choose to change that, that has to go back to Sandag and the ITOC or Independent Integrated Transportation Oversight Committee to get approval of any change you would make on it. We're required to spend, there's the 2000, anything that accumulated in fiscal 09, which was starting July 1 of 08, we were required to spend it within 7 years of the collection date. So we're approaching that, and probably next year or so we're going to have to, if we don't spend some of it, we'll probably have to go back and ask for permission to extend it. Now, there's no provision in the ordinance for extending it. There's nothing that says one way or the other. So if we choose to go back, we'll be the first to break the ice on it, probably, from what Sandag tells me. Again, the first year we only collected about $4,000, so it isn't like there's going to be a big project we can put $4,000 and build out of $4,000. So I think we have a good argument to why we're delaying on it.
I know that all we're asking for tonight is to approve the 2% increase. But when you go into the project and the fact you only have $46,000 plus, we can combine that with other funds. So it just
Absolutely.
Has to be spent in that particular area unless we change our minds on that.
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yes,
So
sir.
we can combine it with something to do with transits or bicycles or something like that.
Or redevelopment.
Or there is no such thing as redevelopment.
There is a redevelopment project or a development project adjacent to this area if you wanted to contribute to that.
We can combine it with other stuff. Though.
Yes, sir.
Do we have any other questions for Mr. Levine?
Mr. Mayor, I was going to ask him exactly that same question, whether these funds could be combined so that we don't have to ask for an extension and be in that position. And I recommend that you find an appropriate, fully consistent project that is being funded with other sources as well, and that we don't have to go through that request to Sandag. This is actually a charge on every new constructed housing unit.
With the exception of low income. Low income is exempt. So for instance, the project at 10th and Donix that you approved recently for 6 units would not be required to comply.
Right. But for anyone trying to build a house, for example, on a vacant lot, this would be a $2,254 charge, which is the amount that it's increased over the $2,000 originally. Is there any way, because it seems kind of unfair, that no matter what, it's a 2% increase, even if the cost of living index for engineering construction is lower, which it has been, we still have to assess the higher amount. Is there any way around that so that we could just assess the amount of increase that is consistent with the construction cost increase index?
As I understand it, without going back to the voters, because that was a voter-approved Proposition A, that it's not, it's because it's written in the agreement or in the ordinance that was adopted by the voters in 2006.
This is an Imperial Beach ballot measure?
No, this is a County of San Diego ballot measure.
All right. I see the point. Thank you very much.
Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers listed in this item?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Public hearing. Do we have any questions or comments? Entertain a motion to adopt resolution 2014-7472 establishing RTCIP plan fee for this year. Motion in a second. Could we please vote?
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Moving on to item 5.1. Mr. Levine, I see you have some more folks here to help us in our city again.
Yes, sir. Mayor, council members, I'd like to introduce to you Eagle Scout candidate Nate Sennett. Nate is in Troop 53 out of North Park, San Diego, and he's in the troop that I'm the Scoutmaster for. He would like to propose to you a Eagle project for his Eagle rank tonight within the city. This is not unlike the ones that you've seen in the times past. So I'd like to turn it over to Nate and let him talk to you about it.
I just want to say good evening, honorable mayor and council members. I'm Nathaniel Sennett. I go to St. Augustine High School. I'm 17, and like Hank said, I'm the minister. So where I want to do my project is Hank's building, is the Public Works building. It's at 495 10th Street, and in front of the sign, you can see in the picture, that's actually exactly where I intend to do my project, is about a 400 square foot area of grass. And in that area, there used to be a lot of, or nearby there was irrigation, and when they remodeled the area around it, they couldn't find the tie-in, so just about every day Hank goes and waters it himself. And so since there's no irrigation, it's up to him to water it, and it's just kind of another thing on his plate that he doesn't really need. And also, so I want to replace that, and it'll require a base layer of sand after I dig everything out, aggregate base, then sand, and then we're going to reuse some cobblestones that used to be somewhere in the city, like some odd years ago, and they're interlocking pavers, so we're recycling some city resources. And the sign in front has been like ridden by termites and all kinds of things, so I intend to replace that with redwood and put a new type of lettering on it. And so again, the area requires hand watering. The sign's pretty old. And then I have a list that I've already sent to the Public Works Department, and I'll just read it to you so you guys have an idea of what's going on. So I'll need 3 2x4x5 pieces of pressure-treated Douglas fir, 5 cubic yards of an aggregate base, 2 cubic yards of sand, 3 pieces of 2x12x10 redwood, 1 saw, a vibrating plate compactor, 1 tape measure, 1 spirit level, 1 straight edge, and I'm going to ask some members of my troop to bring other supplies like brushes and shovels and wheelbarrows. Right. That's all. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you very much for, I guess in a sense, volunteering to do this. I think it's a worthwhile project, and we've been very lucky here in Vero Beach that folks like yourself, your predecessors, and the troop have helped out all over the city. I can't say it's probably 30 projects, Hank?
I don't keep track, but we're
Let's say
30 plus.
Let's
Yes.
say 30.
Yes, sir.
Good number. So, do we have any questions for the young man here? Ms. Bragg?
Thank you, Mr. Sennett, for being here for your project this evening. I do have a couple questions for you though. How much time do you think it's going to take you to complete this?
It'll take one day. The day we plan to do it would be May 10th, which is a Saturday.
And in the staff report, say that it would save water and maintenance time. Any idea how much water it's going to save or maintenance time, or is that, Hank, any idea on that?
I mean, it's not a lot of area, but when since we're hand watering it to keep it green right now, it's, there's man hours in it. I don't know. It's not that large of an area that's going to make a significant financial difference in our budget, but it does take time.
Okay, I think the real concern that I had too was the water saving, and I think that, as a community in the city of San Diego, that's something we're very concerned about. So thank you for addressing that. My real question is, where are the cobblestones from that you talked about?
You bet. Do you remember before we redid Seacoast Drive, the block that was at the intersection of Imperial Beach Boulevard and Seacoast Drive? Those blocks, both the intersection had the blocks, and also the handicap ramps, or the ADA ramps, or the corners. We salvaged all those blocks, and so I've got about 4 pallets of blocks that we salvaged, and we can if we reuse them wherever we need them, or, if they break, because they're common to what's in South Seacoast Drive. Same block. So as those become worn or broken, we can replace them. And I thought, this a project like this would be another good use of those.
Great, and that's just another perfect example of repurpose, reuse, recycle. And that's why Imperial Beach is as far along as we are. I appreciate your project, sir. Thank you very much.
Anything else?
Do we have any other questions, Naomi? We appreciate that. I don't think you're looking for any action from us, or?
We just like concurrence that you're okay with that.
Sounds good to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 5.2, Mr. Hall.
Mayor and Council, continuing the Hank Levine show tonight, as we are changing some seats there. You'll be provided with some concepts and some ideas of how we can make some improvements to Elm Street. And we have met with the neighbors, as you know, several times. In fact, last night we had a meeting with the neighborhood and received some additional comments. And so we'll turn some time over to Hank and kind of narrow in on some concepts for improving Elm Avenue.
Mayor, council members, I have with me Carmen Kasner with Atkins Engineering, who's our city engineer consultant. Atkins Engineering has been with me and the city on this project since we last discussed it with you in July of 13. We got permission from you to meet with the community members and the school districts in that vicinity of Elm Avenue between 4th and 7th Street. When I introduced it to you back in July, I was expressing that I was looking for some way to improve pedestrian, bicycle, and traffic calming items within the blocks of 4th Street to 7th on Elm Avenue, because that's directly in front of the Mar Vista High School and South Bay Union District headquarters, and also the Imperial Beach Elementary School for the disabled youth that go to the school there in that corner of Connecticut and Elm Avenue. We had 4 meetings with the community. And then from July through September, and then again last night, as city manager mentioned, we had a kind of a follow-up before tonight just to make sure that they knew what we were proposing. And I guess I'll turn it over to Carmen to kind of run through the engineering side of it, and then we'll be open to questions. The end result of what I'm asking for tonight is either a concurrence or denial or rejection, maybe better said, of the concept that we're proposing and the community has interest in, if assuming there is a concurrence, that you would authorize us to proceed with a grant for the Active Transportation Program from Caltrans. Applications were invited between March 21 through May 21st of this year. So we have just a little over 5 weeks, I guess, about 5 weeks to get our application in. It must be in Caltrans Sacramento by the 21st, or it will not be accepted. You awarded us, or provided, authorized, appropriated, better said, $40,000 to get this project to you, and assuming you concur with the proposal for going forward with the grant with this scope of work, then we'll proceed with that, and then this is part of a larger project. If you remember, the Elm Avenue from Seacoast to 7th is part of an overlay project. What we're proposing just in these blocks is to enhance the pedestrian bicycle traffic calming within those within those blocks. I believe that kind of summarizes what I'm proposing for tonight. I'd like Carmen to go through it and then we can answer some questions.
Thank you, council members. So the project would start on the west end at 4th Street. We would explored a lot of different options with the community, and this is what was kind of, we came down to is what was recommended. Basically on the north side of the street, the only improvement would be to fix the rolled curb and make it a standard curb. It does require a little bit of sidewalk work behind there, but it's essentially not changing the curb location at all. The parking would remain on the north side of the street as well, so that was a real concern by the residents. We would keep 2 lanes of traffic going in both directions, one in each direction. And then on the south side of the street, the main improvements we would be making is we would have a shared sidewalk bike pathway. They'd actually be separate, but basically we would have one area where we would have a very wide area for bikes and pedestrians. We would have them differentiated with either different elevations, and I'll go into some ideas that we have. We're still working with the community and some of the technical issues associated with this. As we proceed, we would add make sure we have stop signs at Covina. This is the parking lot next to the high school, and
there aren't stop signs there now, correct?
No.
Okay.
There will be stop signs at Covina. We're working with the school district. They're going to really start encouraging their staff and the community to use this parking lot that is left next to the school district, because one of the big changes that we're going to make is to have less parking directly in front of the school district lots. And it's kind of hard to tell. We have a big rollout, that we can roll out if it's easier for people, but basically reducing the number of actual parking spaces in front, and instead have a loading drop-off zone for the people dropping off the kids. One of the big things that's got to happen, regardless of whether we go ahead with the enhancements for the safety, is one of the city's sewer pump stations is right at the intersection of 5th Street, and it floods. And that means that you're pumping stormwater to be treated at the wastewater treatment plant versus just wastewater, which is expensive. And so we're proposing a tabletop or a raised intersection at the corner of 5th Street that would address drainage to minimize the amount of water getting into that pump stations. So as a minimum, we're going to be, we need to overlay the street and do this tabletop work. It's whether we go ahead and do the additional sidewalk bike path area. We would keep a couple parking spaces in front. We've got basically 5 parking spaces in front, 2 of them handicap at the direction of the district. They've been part of the conversation, and they're very supportive of this whole concept. And we're working on getting letters of support for this project. As we proceed down Elm, again, the shared bike path just continues on. As we get toward the intersection with Connecticut, we would have more of a bus loading drop-off zone. That's where they're doing it already, but it would be striped and very clearly delineated for them. We are adding, you can see it just on the edge of this match line, stop sign at Connecticut going west from on Elm, just west of 7th Street. That isn't there currently. This is 7th Street. So basically, as it comes to that first intersection at Connecticut, we'd be adding a stop sign. We've been told by the district that's a real concern for the community there. That's the basic, and again, throughout this whole area, the parking will remain on the north side. 1 lane of traffic in each direction remains. We need to work through what sort of enhancements and to make this really kind of a special place. We're throwing out, discussing some ideas of how to, possibly doing the bike lane. In one of our communities that we worked with, we did a bike lane that was slightly separated by a little bit of a curb. It wasn't a full curb, and then you actually had it separated with the sidewalk. We've got plenty of room. We basically have 11 feet plus 3 feet. We've got basically almost 15 feet on the south side that we can play with for enhanced landscaping or hardscaping that can be real pretty, as well, but easy, low maintenance for the city. Some other things for place we can do things with stamped concrete or coloring. We're going to be working with a landscape architect on the left side. There's a lot of things you can do nowadays with concrete, just to kind of add some whimsy. Given it's next to the Mariners, maybe there's some ideas we can work with the school to bring out some of the themes of boats or tridents or something. We hadn't gone into a lot of that detail because that's something we do want to work with the community. We want to make sure we were getting direction to proceed before we spend a lot of energy on that element. So I think that kind of covers the overall.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have some initial questions? Start with Ms. Bragg.
Thank you. On page 2 of the attachment 1, is this a typographical error? It's got to be. On the dates of the meetings, July 23rd, 2013, August 13th, 2013. Should this be?
They were meetings.
These are meetings
we held
that we had. Okay.
Last summer.
All right.
Council member, in addition to that, we had a fourth one as a result of those first 3 that we felt like community and us felt like we needed to do a fourth one. So we met in middle of September.
Okay. So the grant needs to be turned in by May 21st.
Yes, ma'am.
That's correct. Okay. That's. Mr. Mayor, do we have any public speakers, any comment cards on this at all?
No speaker slips were submitted.
Okay, kind of surprised about that. I do have a couple of questions. You're talking about the loading zone. How many cars will be able to queue up in that loading zone? 7 or 8. Okay.
I mean, queuing kind of a.
Sir,
Yeah, sorry,
sir, I mean, if you want to give her the information, you can speak in the microphone, but we can't have a good conversation that way.
Sorry about that. Depends on how cleanly they queue up, somewhere between 7 and 10 spaces. I mean,
Okay. You could go into a little bit more of the tabletop intersection design.
basically that requires you come up about 3 inches. You don't come up a full 6 inches because you need to be able to have it sloped gradually enough that the fire trucks and emergency vehicles still get through it adequately. But it's basically the whole intersection is raised up. The pedestrian ramps at the corners are sloped down, but not as much. And then the whole area is just at a higher elevation.
And then we're removing parking spaces on Elm Avenue.
On the south side, the parking would be
on the
removed.
south side, and that's about 23 parking in front. Okay.
But the school district has a parking lot that's very poor, minimally used, and there's not a lot of parking that occurs in the
Did
south
you
side.
get, during the meetings, was there any comment from the public, maybe people that live on that street? I'm very interested in knowing how the residents on Elm Avenue feel about this project.
Yes, and we had, last night we met with the community. We had something like 10 persons there. Some of them were husband and wife or man and woman on an address, which was a fairly small turnout. When we were meeting in August and 1st of July, we had 22, 23 members from the area there. When we first started these meetings with the community, there was a lot of wariness of what the city was about to do to them. But I think we heard them. We came back with writing, modifying ideas and plans to more closely comply with or follow what where they were interested in going with it. And by the last meeting in September and the one we had last night, I would say, well, last night it was 100%. There may have been one or two that were just a little bit uneasy when we last met in September. But I think it was pretty well accepted or received that, hey, we can make this a special place. We can make it so that the kids have more place to be able to walk to and from school or bike to and from school and not in the middle of the street. We are interested in trying to get the traffic to slow down. That was a comment many members made last night, is the traffic is still going way too fast. And we're trying to do this design so that we can accommodate those issues.
The main angst was, they didn't want to lose parking on the north side of the street. They didn't want one way. We threw out a lot of concepts and a lot of ideas. What would you think about this? And we got a very clear no. Don't lose our parking on the north side. We don't care about the south side of the parking because park there. We park next to our homes. We want 2 ways of traffic because we're concerned about that sort of thing. But when we presented this option, they were very.
Okay, that was my concern, was that, we had plenty of opportunity for the residents in that area to come and discuss the project with us, and if there were concerns, that we readily and to the best of our ability address those concerns so that the community could embrace this. This is a pretty good sized change, really, small in design, but it is a big change for Elm Avenue, so I just wanted to make sure that as a council member, that I was voting for something that the community truly was embracing. So I appreciate Mr. Levine, and you always have been, and I appreciate you continuing in that vein, is that being very responsive to concerns that the community has. It's really going to affect them. So thank you.
And I would also like to just recognize that the school districts, both South Bay and Sweetwater, have cooperated consistently with this. And been very, very supportive and trying to help the community alleviate some of the congestions that they see now. And I talked to Linda Scott, who's the engineer, Linda Clark, the engineer from Sweetwater School District this morning. She wasn't able to make the meeting last night, but she's attended most of the other meetings we've had, and I told her that my interest is in trying to have Sweetwater, or at least the high school, partner with us on this grant. And also, I'm going to be asking South Bay Union School District to partner with us as well. They've been in with us on this whole issue since we started the Environmental Justice Grant. If you remember that with Walk San Diego, over 3 years ago now. And the final report was given out to you a little over a year ago, I think a year ago, February. All of these issues were part of that report that noted that we had significant safety issues with pedestrians, bicycles, and vehicle speeds. This is kind of the first chunk at the report of out from the Environmental Justice Grant study. And as time goes on, I hope to chip away at some more of them that are big. We've been chipping away at some of the smaller issues. We just completed tomorrow we'll have completed a project in front of Bayside Elementary. I don't want to get off track here, but we're using that study that was done, Environmental Justice Grant, as kind of the basis or foundation or foothold to try to incrementally take on some of these issues that they've got around the schools and the neighborhoods.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. Mayor and colleagues, I think that this is a really important issue, one that we really need to send home, is that we're really addressing the safety of our residents and our kids that are in school. I know that personally, I avoid Elm Avenue. I saw you on Elm Avenue the other day, Mayor. It was after school hours. During the school hours, I try not to go on Elm Avenue. And a lot of it is a safety issue, kids darting in and out, or people being, hopping out of their cars at the stop sign. So it's everything that we can do to ensure safety, I think, is a step in the right direction. So I think this is a great project. Thank you.
Mayor, if I might add, Carmen mentioned trying to do some landscaping, but my direction has been that we want to do landscaping which does not require water and or at least very much water, and landscape maintenance in terms of keeping grass or plants alive and that kind of stuff. So we'll be looking at some sort of, hopefully, landscaping that's not so much plant material, live plant material, but other kind of aesthetic things, decorative colors and blocks and that kind of stuff.
Mr. Spriggs?
Well, you've answered most of the questions that I had as well, Mr. Levine. And I was at one of the community meetings last year. I think there were at least 20 or maybe 30 people from the community who were there. At that time, I can say also there were a lot of questions and concerns raised, and I think you really done both of you and those from the city who have been involved, and the consultants have done a great job of addressing the community concerns. And in a way, this is an example of the kind of project that we can consider a success, and maybe it's a model on a small scale where you've had substantial residential issues and concerns that have been reconciled with what the school would like to see done and what's really in the interest of the students and their safety. So I think this is really a great success that it's all resolved and wrapped up. I was hoping also to hear from some of the community members. It's nice to hear from the community members when they've been through a process that has resulted in their issues being resolved to their satisfaction, as opposed to the opposite, when we do usually hear from people. But I guess that's a good sign as well, that we don't have speaker slips that, indicating people are not dissatisfied. It indicates that people are satisfied with the results.
The letter I sent out specifically said that there was this meeting, that they were invited to come. And again, last night, to those who participated in the community meeting, I encouraged people to come by and let you know if they had, their support or not support.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Patton?
Yeah, thank you. I went to the second meeting, and it was pretty contentious. And apparently they got better, which I didn't go see. But I did see a lot of community members voicing their opinion, a lot of listening. They didn't want parking permits. They didn't want parking permits and have to pay for parking permits, which was not a good idea. They didn't want one way. They didn't want to lose their parking spots in front of their house. So that, if you listen. I have a question. If you go to the slide with the bus drop-off zones on Ivy Boulevard in Connecticut, there, and from what I understand, on Connecticut, right on the corner there, you have the kids with special needs. That's where primarily they're dropped off. Now, is the new bus loading drop-off zone, is that going to be for the kids with special needs as well? That area right there, because
the one on Elm piece there, that's still, it is a bus drop-off as well. I was out there before their break, so probably a month ago, and I did not see any buses using that one during that afternoon, but it is still marked and striped for buses only. And that was what South Bay Union School District had asked for. There was upwards of 8 buses on Connecticut stacked in there from the intersection south all the way to where that off-street parking is on the schoolyard there off of Connecticut.
And I know you worked with district personnel. Have you personally talked to the principal at ID Charter, the principal at Mar Vista High, and really got it from the bird's eye view? Because they know a little more what's going on than, say, somebody in the district office. So, and if you have, what feedback have they given you, and how recently have you talked to them?
Well, we did for the IB charter, I have not talked to her personally since the environmental justice grant final report, but her staff has called me frequently. That was one of the reasons I was out there a month ago, because of some of their concerns. I have personally talked to Wes Braddock, is that right? And he is very supportive, and he's the one that has said we are willingly giving up that parking in front for a drop off to get the people off the streets. We have plenty of parking on site without using this. We have plenty of parking without using parking on the street itself. And Mr. Burdock said that he would, encourage people to use the parking lots that they have there off street. So he's been very supportive of what we've been doing. I personally briefed him on what we've done as well, this concept. And he's had staff there as well.
Well, I would just encourage you to continue meeting and talking to these people, because things evolve, and if this plan does go through and something does change, I've heard a number of different, issues, particularly around that little area right there, for whatever reason. I'm not there when they're getting dropped off. So I think that's an area of concern for some of the administration there.
This is not the last that I will intend to come back to the community. As we start putting the concept of what the street will look like, or what the bicycle pedestrian way will look like, what kind of landscape is in there, it's my intent to have the community back involved, the school back involved, to make sure that we're making this a special place for everybody.
Well, I'd like to echo my colleagues as far as working with the community. You did well on that. You listened to them and tailored it down to what we're doing on the project. I have a couple questions. I kind of agree with Mr. Patton on this one little corner here. I have a little different take on what the buses do there than what you do. Like, it's just a parking zone for them. But the other issue is that with Sweetwater and the different things going on there, and different conversations, if they no longer had the special needs students here, because, as far as Sweetwater goes, they picked a site where they worked at South Bay Union for this site. It's not necessarily the best site for them, because it's as far southwest, the whole school district. It goes all the way to National City and Hills Ranches and all that stuff. But if they move out of that particular facility, how does that affect your plan?
I would think it would only it doesn't change how we are portraying the bicycle pedestrian accommodations in there. It would affect, I would think, the striping and the signage that's there now, because it's all no parking, bus only, drop off only signage and striping in that area. So presumably we could, modify some of that.
I think it's something we might want to consider when you get into the actual design of it, to touch base with, in this case, district offices of the school district. Because I know I've had conversations amongst them a little bit. It seems a little odd that they would pick the site as far away from everybody as possible. I know that South Bay Union was able to accommodate it. It's probably one reason why. Second question, we're applying for a grant. But Elm Avenue from 7th Seacoast Drive needs repairs today. When do you find out about the grant, and what will you do if we don't get the grant?
Well, I would like to proceed with the drawings for the rest of Elm Avenue, but other than that, those 4 blocks or 3 blocks. That we find out from the grant in late August, early September. And if we don't, it's up to council. But if we don't make the cut in the Caltrans cycle, Sandag has a cycle that starts in November, so you could have me reapply for the Sandag grant. It's an active transportation grant. It's just a Sandag grant. Or if there's interest in continuing with this and trying to use city funds, we'd have to come back to you and see if you'd agree with that. Or if those last two things don't pan out, we would just pave the street and leave it like it is.
But you mentioned you have to do the tabletop no matter what.
My request is that we do that, and that's being funded by the Sewer Enterprise Fund. That's how you appropriated the funds for that. The reason I'm asking for that is similar to what Carmen said. When we have heavy rains, that intersection is flooded, and that means the lift station is covered with water. And so we overpressurize the pump station so the water tends not to fall in. It does still fall in, but not like a floodlight rate. And if there were a failure, and I have to get in there and open that manhole, and I am in a flood state.
Okay, so I know that's a problem. I have to live up the street, so I know what you're talking about there. But that's what our process would be if we can't get the grant. We could have perhaps a second opportunity, or just move forward with just doing the street, or whatever portions more of the street we would want to do at that time.
Yes.
And then, from what I'm seeing here on the agenda, is you're asking just for support to apply for the grant. Would you like a vote of the council for that?
That would be yes.
Because
we have to sign.
I make a motion that we apply for the Caltrans Active Transportation Grant for this project. We have a motion and a second. Any comments? Would we vote? Oh, please, I'm sorry. I didn't see.
I don't think anybody's really going to be too surprised about me saying this, but that's exactly right. I know there's alternatives out there to calm traffic. I'd like us to really take a look at alternatives besides stop signs. Looking at the map here, we have one on 4th as it is. We'll have one on 5th. You have one, I believe, south side of the north side of Elm, and 7th has a stop sign as well. And you want to put one less than a block away on the east side of the project. Is that correct?
That's what's being proposed. Yes, sir.
So it's quite easy to put them in. It's quite hard to take them out. I'd like to make sure that we really look into alternatives. Thank you.
And we are going to get more of a look at this. I mean, you mentioned going back to the community, but the council will also get another look at this before we go to the project, right?
Absolutely.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Motion carried unanimously.
Moving on to item 5.3. Item 5.3, Mr. Hall.
Mayor and Council, Community Development Department, and I think Tyler Foles essentially will lead you through a discussion of the progress that we're making on the remodeling of the library. I believe there's also representatives from the county here tonight. But we'll turn some time over to Tyler to review what happened at the Design Review Board, provide you with their recommendation, and give you an update a little bit on where we are with the replacement of the county library. I didn't give him enough time, so I keep talking here.
I'm ready. Thank you, Manager. Mayor, members of the council, this is for the preliminary review of the demolition of the existing library that's located at 810 Imperial Beach Boulevard and construction of a new 12,000 square foot library. The project also proposes 17 new parking spaces on the east side of 8th Street and 21 new parking spaces either in St. James Church or in a new parking lot in Veterans Park, and we'll go into that in more detail. The applicant is the County of San Diego. The zoning is in public facility zone, as noted here on this map, and it's directly north of City Hall where we're at today. This is an aerial of the project site, and this area down here is the actual area owned by the County of San Diego. The remaining portions are located in the city of Imperial Beach, and I've highlighted the areas that we'll be discussing today. The project proposed would essentially be locating the building. They would replace this portion of the building, the entire building, but they would also have majority of the building where the parking lot sits today, and we'll go into more discussion of that as well. This would be called a design build project where the county prepares a conceptual design, and then a design-build entity prepares its own designs that would meet requests for proposals that the county is going to make. The plans that we're looking at today are conceptual, they're subject to change, so the purpose of the review tonight is to provide guidance to the county staff to determine what design features may be placed within that request for proposals. The new library would also connect to the Marina Vista Center, and the Marina Vista Center would either receive a heavy remodel or it may be reconstructed. That's to be determined once they figure out how far into the Marina Vista Center they need to go and what type of work they actually need to do. And as we noted earlier, 38 off-site parking spaces are proposed. This is a site plan that's showing shared parking, and we'll go into that in a second. What they essentially be doing is relocating or realigning parking spaces on 8th Street so that they're all facing north. This would gain a total of 17 parking spaces. They would also recoup some of those spaces by removing the existing curb cut that's behind the library today and replacing those with parking spaces. And they would essentially be leading it down closer to Imperial Beach Boulevard than is currently shown today. And we'll show a comparison so that you can get to see how far down that parking would go. The library would locate on a majority of the site. This right here where the arrow is where the property line sits today. So right now the parking lot that's behind the existing library is all in this location. The entry area would locate off of 8th Street and the park, and we'll show a floor plan showing that in greater detail. And the Marina Vista Center is shown here, and these portions, the senior center and the northern portion of the Marina Vista room wouldn't be touched. The site plan we're looking at right now shows a shared parking with the church. So there'd be 21 parking spaces here if that's the design that would move forward. Anybody who parks there would walk through the park and into the library, but the park would remain intact. I just switched the site plan to show what would happen if they were to create a new parking lot off of Imperial Beach Boulevard. There would be one curb cut off of Imperial Beach Boulevard. They would have to move the bus stop further westward, and there'd be 21 spaces in the park, and they would keep a gateway and walkway leading into the park, and they would likely place turf pavers to try and create some of that green look as you head into the park. But that's if we were to go, or the council was to consider a design with a parking lot in Veterans Park. This is a floor plan showing the proposed library, the entry area that's north of the property line. This is the property line. And then the Marina Vista Center as it is today. So the entry would locate off of 8th Street and from the park. The Marina Vista Center would be connected to the library in the entry area whenever there may be an event causing for the library to need to use that room. However, there'd be a door in this location so that we could keep that room closed to try and keep the current programs that we use today, they could keep using the room. The intent is not to impact the current uses of the Marina Vista Center, but to allow for an expanded use with the library as needed. We haven't figured that out in great detail yet, how to work that out. That's something that we would have to work with county staff to figure out how to reach that type of agreement. The library would have a children area, adult room, great room, typical rooms for a library. The bathrooms located here would also be accessible from the Marina Vista Center as needed. The project's also proposing 2 outdoor patios. They would have there's a patio area out there right now behind the Marina Vista Center, and they're calling it a poet's patio. We don't know full details as to how that'd be used yet, but that's what they're listing on the plan. But they also have this open patio here off of Imperial Beach Boulevard. That's something of interest. There were some comments noted. If this is the children area, do you want to have an outdoor patio right next to the street? And if you do, how tall would you want that fence to be so children don't climb that fence? That's something to consider tonight. In addition, staff and the design review board noted that, or requested that there be an entrance off of Imperial Beach Boulevard. County staff said that since staff is limited, they prefer to have one access area, one entry area, so that they can monitor all those using the library, especially the kids. So that's why only one entrance is proposed. However, per building and fire codes, they at least have to have an exit onto Imperial Beach Boulevard. These are conceptual designs that were proposed by library staff. Again, this would change when the design build entity actually prepares their plans. But you can see this plan right here shows a height of 31.5 feet, varied roof lines, freestanding signage showing the library. They would provide library for the Marina Vista Center. There'd be some type of cohesion between the library and then refacing the Marina Vista Center. We don't have details of that. That's something we would recommend consideration of, that the county or the design build entity show us at some point whenever they have that figured out. This is off Imperial Beach Boulevard with the outdoor patio. Again, there's no entrance, but they're proposing freestanding signage and various landscaping to surround the building. And one other thing to note, if there were a parking lot considered off of Imperial Beach Boulevard, this is an idea of a gateway sign that could be an inviting pedestrian access point into the park. These are the views from Veterans Park. Cars only shown there. If there's a parking lot, it'd be removed if there's not. And then, of course, elevation from the north. This is a rendering that was proposed. We'd get a more detailed rendering with a design build entity, but it just shows if there were a parking lot to locate off of Imperial Beach Boulevard, it could be screened with various types of landscaping. So the parking is a big consideration for the project. Our code recommends parking a library based on professionally accepted standards. It doesn't give specific parking requirements for those types of uses. So the county's using the Institute of Transportation Engineers recommendations, which is to provide 37.2 parking spaces for a library that's 12,000 square feet. The library, or the county, is proposing 38 spaces, 17 off of 8th Street, and then 21 spaces either shared with the church, a parking lot, or within Veterans Park. For option 1, that's parking in the church with a shared parking agreement. That agreement, as we understand it, would be for 20 years, and the benefit of that is that there'd be no impact to the park, but after 20 years when that lease is up, we'd have to reassess the parking demands at that time if there was not a renewal of that lease. For option 2, the parking lot would locate in Veterans Park. The benefit of that is you'd have permanent parking, but you'd lose park space, and they would still provide a gateway walkway into the park. This is an existing picture versus proposed. So again, you can see the existing library as it is today with a parking lot. It would be consumed with the building. There'd still be a large amount of landscaping. They'd meet the 15% landscaping requirement still on their property. But you'd have that new entry area, which is here, where there's a storage building connecting to the Marina Vista Center here. We would still keep the same Marina Vista Center entrance, so that wouldn't change. There'd still be that separate entrance so that library users and Marina Vista Center users don't always have to overlap. When we went to the design review board, they recommended to provide shared parking with the church, to provide an entrance off of Imperial Beach Boulevard if possible, to improve the facade on the Marina Vista Center to match the new library, to provide for bicycle parking, and also they appreciated the plans that were shown to them and also the landscape elements and the signage that we reviewed today. The Women's Club was present at the design review board meeting, and we also, county staff and city staff met with them, I think it was last week, to discuss the project, and we requested that the Women's Club requested that the library expansion not negatively impact the existing programs in the Marina Vista Center, to not reduce the square footage of the Marina Vista Center, and to replace the storage area. And the county is proposing to keep the square footage the same in the Marina Vista Center, and they would replace the storage area just south of the building today. They also requested to provide ventilation, airflow, sunlight in the remodeled Marina Vista Center so that it's similar to what it is today, and that the county should provide temporary locations for the programs to operate, and requested that the park remain intact, and also that the patio on the south of the proposed library provide for a fence or wall appropriate so that kids don't jump over it. Staff recommended to provide the shared parking with the church since it meets the professional standards and it wouldn't alter the park. To implement transportation demand management strategies such as ample use of bicycle parking to encourage that type of use and transportation to the library. that the design and build entity should provide for a high level of design and use similar features that we see in the concept plans, the varied roof lines, the alteration of the colors, drought tolerant landscaping, use of building projections and variety of building materials, and to integrate that type of design with the Marina Vista Center as well, so that it all looks like a cohesive design. And also to maintain the same amount of square footage in the Marina Vista Center, and if they were to share parking with the church, to provide adequate ADA access as required per law, and also adequate signage so people know where to park if for some reason the parking's full along the street. So staff recommends to receive the report, entertain public testimony, and provide comments on this proposal, and provide direction to county staff. There's county staff in the audience today that are going to be taking notes or respond to questions council may have. And then they could use that information in their request for proposals. And then some of the items that would be of consideration may include the design, the parking, transportation, demand management strategies, such as bicycle parking, consideration of an entrance on Ivy Boulevard, the patio off of Ivy Boulevard, integrating with Marina Vista Center, and also how to have a cohesive uses going on with the Marina Vista Center and the county at the same time. So those are just some topics to go into or consider, and that concludes staff's report.
Thank you. I do have a couple speakers lists. So I'll start with those. Nancy Davis.
I'm going to give my minutes to anybody that needs them.
Anybody that needs it. There's only one other person that's put one in, Nancy Stone. And she's already been donating some more time.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council, and please everyone that's here. You already know who I am, but I wouldn't have received the recognition I did today without the support of the other friends and doing with the library. It's a team effort, and I'm very, very passionate about libraries, as you can imagine. But I'm also going to tell you who I am and a little of my background, just because it bears on this.
Ma'am, could you speak into the microphone, please?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. I was born in Coronado because there is no hospital in Imperial Beach, but I grew up here and I graduated from Westview, from middle school, and then graduated from Mar Vista, actually just a couple of years behind Brian. So I am a California resident and proud of it, and I'm specifically very proud of Imperial Beach. It is my hometown, and I had a Navy career. And after I retired, I came back here. I'm living in my parents' home, which is the home I grew up in on Citrus Avenue. And the first thing I did when I came back was get involved in libraries again, because what I remember to this day is when I was 7 years old, going in with my mother, who had worked part-time at the library, and it instilled that love of reading in me to get my first library card. And it was a moment that has stayed with me now. I became a life member of the Friends. I believe very much in what libraries do. And as Jose Aponte said today at the county during the County Board of Supervisor volunteer recognition, libraries are not just about books. Libraries are community. And the Imperial Beach Library is part of the county system. It's one of 33 libraries. We're very small in size, but the impact that we have that help the San Diego County Library System become the Library of the Year for the United States. And we were part of that. We provide things for the community. We have Wi-Fi, community programs, citizenship, family programs, story time. We get everybody involved, the lifeguards, the police department, even the bomb disposal team at Imperial Beach has come and given presentations. And it's all about community, and that's what we do. And we need, I went to this library and it's still there. We need a library that reflects the image of Imperial Beach today. Because I'm very proud of this city. When I grew up, it was First Street. It wasn't Seacoast Boulevard. They were little one-story surfer shacks, and there was just a completely different aura down there. I think we still retain the classic Imperial Beach, and I'm very proud of that. I'm proud of the Woody and the surfboard. And this library is going to reflect our surfing heritage and the heritage that I believe Imperial Beach is so deserving of. And that's what this library is going to do for us, and it's going to enhance the Burlington Center. That's the way I see this with that, and I want to be a part of that process and help with that. So I'm here and I'll answer questions, and I'll be involved with anyone, be on any committees, but I feel so strongly about how important having this library updated to meet with the Imperial Beach image that I see today. Because we are up and coming, but I still like the classic. I don't want to be Pacific Beach, I don't want to be Ocean Beach. We're Imperial Beach, and this library is integral to the success of that, and I appreciate the opportunity to just share some of my views, and I am very, very much involved, and I want to be part of this, and I think it's going to be great for the city. And, you know, if there's little bumps in the road, we're here to work them out. I was in the Navy, and I'm mission-oriented. We can get the job done, okay? So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Once again, Nancy, congratulations on your award. Did you want to speak? Okay, Ms. Stone, could you please come back up again? Ms. Bragg would like to ask you a question.
Thank you. Thank you for your very passionate speech. I did want to just clarify in my own mind, were you speaking as an advocate for the Friends of the Library or the Women's Club?
Friends of the Library. I'm president of the Friends of the Library, so, but I also believe in the Women's Club is a very important part of Imperial Beach, that I have to be here to represent.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have, Mr. Spriggs, you didn't have a question for her, did you?
No, I just had a
Okay,
one comment.
I'm going to start with the comments first, and we'll be right there. Because the first thing I'd like to say is, I see Mr. Murphy out there in the audience. I want to say thank you very much to Supervisor Greg Cox, county staff here. Without them, obviously, we wouldn't be discussing this project. It was the supervisor and the county staff that came forward with this idea and worked with the county on it. So I'd like to say thank you to everybody in the county of San Diego first. And I'm going to comment, if you could go back to your list, Tyler, because that's what it's all about. Thank you. I'm going to comment on a couple of things here. Shared parking is the only way to go for this project. I think the church was willing to work on it. The 20-year deal, we don't know what transportation is going to look like in 20 years. And to hold back a project that's this important to the community, well, what might happen in 20 years, I don't think is worthwhile. Your transportation demand management strategies, obviously we're becoming a more bicycle friendly community. It makes sense for not just the library, but the schools and everybody to do something like this. I totally agree with the county staff on an entrance on Imperial Beach Boulevard. I think that the reason the county library system is as efficient as it is and can actually afford to do a building here in Imperial Beach is because they man it very well. And for us to ask for a doorway that would then require more staffing level, which is an ongoing cost that goes on beyond the 20 years of parking problems, I think it's not something that's necessary for this. I think that their concept of being able to man it with minimum staffing is the efficient way to run a library, and I commend the county on doing that. I have no personal comments on the patio off of Imperial Beach Boulevard. I think it's a great design element, how it works as far as a library. I think that that's why we have the library folks that put a lot of input into this thing here. And I would love to see what we can do to integrate Marina Vista Center into the project. I think that might be something that the city council will have to look at more in the future. Hopefully we can strong arm the county again to do more on that part of it. But those are my personal comments. I think the project brings something to Imperial Beach, people of Imperial Beach deserve. And as the young lady said earlier, there's some bumps in the road. We can figure out how to get over them. I'm sure the Friends of the library staff, the county staff, and I know our city staff can figure out a way to make it work. So those are my comments initially. And Mr. Spriggs, get the microphone.
I share your comments, Mr. Mayor, and those that have been made. This is a great project for Imperial Beach, and it should reflect Imperial Beach's unique culture and aspirations, etc. Greg is back. The mayor thanked you and Supervisor Cox and all those county staff that have worked on this, and we're really very happy about this. I think there's a couple design features that I would like to suggest or concur with, as well as reinforce. One is that the architecture should reflect the uniqueness of Imperial Beach in every way possible, within, consistent with reasonable costs and design standards and that sort of thing, so that we really do have something that speaks to this community and reflects this community as far as the exterior design is concerned. The interior design, I would hope this would be, the word community was mentioned. Absolutely right. This should be a facility that the community really can use, sees as its own. So the interior design should be, it's great that it's got this open plan and the great room in the middle. It should, yeah, there you go. It should be as flexible as possible as far as the uses are concerned, so that not only is it a great place for studying and attracts our youth to it, but it also, for certain occasions, can be opened up for bigger community uses, like maybe an art show or a student's Mar Vista's science fair, or any number of things where we're really bringing our people in either as spectators or as participants and using a wonderful, flexible space that, that everyone can relate to. So I think that openness and the flexibility of design and the exterior reflecting Imperial Beach are both just major kind of design considerations. I really think the shared parking makes a lot of sense, and not messing up Veterans Park. I mean, to me, that would just be a travesty to convert that front area into parking when we really have, and with this especially, we'll have a very nice, attractive frontage opposite City Hall, which a parking lot is not exactly consistent with. I'd say the patio spaces also are an extension of the interior open areas where you can have something that opens up. If we have community events, they can be indoor, outdoor. So I think that's a great idea. And the community room, the mayor kind of opened the door to this, but if we can see that community room as integral to the library, again, opening up more possible uses where the entire thing is available for certain community activities and events would be great. And so if the county could see that as an integral part of the improvements necessary to make the library fully effective, I think that would be a great addition in terms of the philosophy going forward. And as for what we do with the rest of the buildings, we'll have to see. We'll probably have to do something about upscaling them so that they're consistent. I think the idea of the common frontage along 8th, so there's a common appearance, we should be encouraging also. And if we have to do something to help that out, then we should. So those are my comments.
Right.
Thank you. Tyler, if you could please put up the women's club slide that you had. I would like to thank our city staff for making this presentation at the Imperial Beach Women's Club. For the last 40 or 50 years, the second Tuesday of every month, the Women's Club has met in that community room. For the last 40 or 50 years, they have been the most frequent user of that room. So should we pay attention to their comments? I think so. Not only do they use that room, they paid for their own storage room in that facility, so that the county is willing to appreciate that and still make room for the women's club storage area. And it may seem like a little thing to you, but let me tell you something. You don't want to mess with a women's storage area. That one is very important to them, and it actually holds some very valuable sentimental objects for our club. So keeping that storage room, maybe not exactly where it is now, if it could be increased in size, you know, that would be a great thing. We have lots of stuff. There are some things in that slide, though, that are very important, that expansion should not impact existing programs. Like I said, they meet the second Tuesday of every month. We also have a 12-step program that meets there. There's yoga. There's all kinds of things going on. So I'd be very interested in the displacement program, what they're going to do to satisfy those very important members of our community. The ventilation and airflow, sunlight into the remodeled Marina Vista room is extremely important. If you have ever attended one of the Women's Club events, if you haven't, shame on you, you really should. But it can get, it's rather dank and dusty, and there's not much sunlight. And by the way, the Women's Club did pay for the drapes that are in there now. I don't think we want to buy new drapes if they are envisioning that. The parking is critical, not only to library patrons, but also users of the senior center. So the parking over at St. James could be a little problematic, especially for, you know, for senior disabled. It may not seem like a short walk in the park, but it can, if you're disabled, it's a long walk in the park. So I didn't see it addressed anywhere, the number of handicap stalls. And I believe there's only one handicap stall in front of the library. I think there's one in the parking lot. I don't think that's enough. I'm sure we're probably meeting our requirement, but why should we just meet our requirement? If we could have a little bit more than that, that would be great. I think we're calling it the splash area, the splash patio. In the Women's Club recommendation, I believe it was a design review board recommendation as well. The height of that wall has to be important. I don't know what kind of structure it's going to be, but I can almost envision little kids, you know, trying to squeeze through anything and probably being successful. So I'm a little bit concerned about youngsters getting out onto the street. And does this impact our crosswalk on Ivy Boulevard in any way? Does any of this remodel impact that that rather new crosswalk on Ivy Boulevard? It doesn't. Okay, good, because that was a lot of money. Okay. Can you talk about how many parking spaces would be in the shared parking lot, the handicap stalls?
In the shared lot, there'd be one.
How many?
One in the shared area, because you need one for every 25, I think. On the street, there'd be 2 to 3. I'm not sure exactly what that amount is based on the current plan, which is meeting the standards, but we could see if we could add any more without, we may have to reduce the amount of parking on the street, though, from 17 added to 16 or so if we start adding more. That's the only consideration. I'm
just going to go from personal experience. The second Tuesday of the month, that handicap stall in front of the Marina Vista Center is taken by 9 o'clock in the morning. Because there are several senior members who have handicap placards, and they know there's only one stall out there. So I really don't think we're being fair to our disabled community by not having that. So I realize we're meeting the requirement, but we can do better than that. Thank you.
All right, here goes. I'm an educator. I love libraries, but for me to go for this library, I'm going to have to insist that Ms. June Engel and her staff stays part of it.
I second it.
For all that she does and her staff does for us, I hate to see this built. Then we get a new staff miraculously. And so before I vote yes, that has to be. Yes. June stays and her staff. Just to add on to, this is a great idea. I did see the one slide. Can you get the interior slide? I saw a slide about computers. Is there a computer room? Or the computers are just going to be in each section?
I don't know the answer to that question.
We have a member of the county team.
Excuse me, I just wanted to introduce the fact that there was, county staff has been here working with us all along this project, and there's several members from the staff here, and they're available to answer questions.
Mayor Janney, members of the council, my name is Tom Fincher. I'm Chief of Project Management with the Department of General Services. With me tonight, we have our planner, two architects that have met with the community and with staff. We've met with the Women's Club, we've met with the Friends, we've been with Mayor Janney and Supervisor Cox at a couple of community meetings. And let me reinforce first that the design is purely conceptual. The splash patio may be a craft area, it may be a garden, it may be an interactive function. We lay out the design so that the library staff can monitor the entire facility with maybe 2 people. The entry next to the community room allows the community to expand. The computers are located around the facility. They are also a separate computer room. The entire building is supported with Wi-Fi, so you can bring your laptop, you can check out a laptop or a tablet, sit around the library, sit outside the library, or focus on the desktop in the computer room itself.
And will there be, I know it's all conceptual, tablets as well that will be able to be checked out instead of a laptop, tablets?
Yes, they can check out laptops and tablets.
Well, you might as well stay up here since you're here. And I'm just curious, how green is it going to be? Are we going to have solar panels, solar lighting? Or do you know that?
The library project that we're currently on the street in selection for right now in Alpine is the county's first zero net energy building. We are anticipating that this will be our second zero net energy building. We were able to augment the Alpine budget with some photovoltaic funds. We don't have that luxury for this project. We will be encouraging the design build teams to figure out creative solutions. The design build process allows a design competition essentially among the 3 pre-qualified teams. So we will be getting the best of the best.
Excellent, I'm glad to hear that. And then bike parking. I know currently, I know June should probably answer, number of fingers, how many bike parking spots do you have in front of the library currently?
Excuse me. Technically, it can house like 5 hooked up to it, but the way it is next to buildings like 2.
Okay,
Excuse me.
Okay, so we know 5 is not adequate. My family of 4, we leave you 1 left. And I don't think I've ever parked in the park. We've got a bike parking spot. So I would expect a lot of bike parking, like 20, 30. Is that even in the you want to hear our feedback? So
we'll put that number in the RFP.
Yeah.
As put in the minimum requirement, we'll put in a request for an enhancement.
Yeah, I think
and the design build teams use their creativity to do the best.
A lot of commuters, small town, will ride a bike to the library. I think rather than try to find a parking spot, biking the library is nothing like it. And then drive-by drop-off box to drop off materials. I know I use one in Chula Vista, in Coronado. It's so convenient. You drive through, you don't have to park, just a drop-off box. And looking at the design, I really can't see where that would be. But if there's something,
we have not envisioned a drive-by drop-off. The library operation right now uses a self-check-in, self-check-out.
Right.
And the self-check-in deposits the books at the device that actually checks the units in and begins to sort them. With a drive-by unit, we also impact our parking. So what we contemplated is that there might be a loading drop-off spot.
Okay.
Because in our community meetings, loading for the women's club meetings and the senior center activities was one of the questions of concern. So We've anticipated we provide a loading area as well as additional handicap parking.
Well, and it's very well thought of and thought out. And I looked at Splash Zone, Splash Zone, I mean, it's waterproof books or stuff like that. Or, but I could almost see like a coffee cart or a little reading area. I mean, I'm sure there's a gazillion ideas. So those are mine. Thanks for listening. Thank you.
So what we were asked this evening was to just give input because that's, as the gentleman has explained, this design build concept really works well for him. And I'll just give all the parameters and let these guys compete and come up with the best design. I am going to ask one question, and it might be Mr. Levine asking that. There are 2 plaques out there in front of Vernon Vista Center now. One of them honors Scout Troop 53. The other one said something else. I hate to see those go away. I think that was important to honor those scouts that have participated in our community all these years, so we should consider what happens to those. I know those are something we can take care of, Mr. Levine, so.
They're children.
Yeah. So, do you need any more input from us, Tyler, on this one? We don't have any other speaker slips at the moment? Then that's all we were taking up on this particular item. Let's move on. Item 5.4, Mr. Hall.
Mayor and Council, the next item that we have is the consideration of an operation agreement between the Boys and Girls Club as well as the Little League and Girls Softball to operate the sports park in Imperial Beach. This has been a long, ongoing issue, probably not one we need to revisit. I think you're very familiar with it. We brought forward to you a concept at your last meeting, and what we are looking for tonight is the acceptance of the agreements with both the Boys and Girls Club as well as the Little League and the Girls Softball. The slide that you have before you, there was some question about how that park would be divided. It's very clear that the north part is in red, and that would be the part that would be operated by the Boys and Girls Club, and that area in blue would be operated by what is collectively called the leagues. The other question or suggestion that the City Council had for us to bring forward was to have a list of the programs and fees that would be implemented by the Boys and Girls Club. And so, as you know, in your packet, we included a list of the different programs that will be provided by the Boys and Girls Club. So we've kind of combined, of course, this presentation into one, but there are actually 2 agreements that would require 2 separate motions. One with the one for an operating agreement with the Boys and Girls Club for the what we're calling the Recreation Center, and then one with between the city and the Little League and Girls Softball, collectively called leagues, to operate the field space at the sports park. So again, this project has been with us for a long time. Given the hour, we certainly don't need to go into a lot of detail, but that's what we are here for tonight, is to seek approval of those 2 agreements.
Thank you. Do we have any initial questions? I have speaker slip here. I'll go to that first. King Younger, you have some time donated by Joanne.
Hi. I'd like to start by thanking the council for giving me the opportunity to be on the task force. Eye-opening, to say the least. Thank you for doing your job as elected officials and giving the community a forum to express their wants and needs, and then creating a way for us to be a part of the process. You deserve credit for listening to this community and giving the sports park collaboration a chance to prove to you that there was something better out there for our community. I want to thank the Sports Park Collaborative and all the amazing people who put forth the effort to get to this point. To the Boys and Girls Club, unfortunately, you're not done with us. This community has invested more into you than money can buy. We gave you our support, time, and ultimately our trust. They say that when you allow people to be part of something, it gives them a sense of ownership in whatever they're partaking in. This community feels that way about Sports Park now. Please remember the things that we discussed and that are important to this community. Things such as keeping the skate park free, free the way IB Forest Skate Park and the Tony Hawk Foundation intended it to be. To bring enhanced recreation to this community means new programs and activities that are focused on the wants and needs of this community, not what's just popular in other communities. Not just for the youth, but for everyone. The seniors are about to lose their senior center, and need the Boys and Girls Club to keep them healthy and happy. Our teens need a place to hang out after school where they feel welcomed but are not treated like small children. One of the most important things we hope is that you won't forget your promise is to never turn away a kid because a family can't afford it. As for the sports park employees who have worked tirelessly to make sure the sports park kids are taken care of and happy, we thank you. At one of our first meetings, they all agreed that as long as the rec center would remain open for the kids to use freely, they would support it. That's the kind of employees we want working for IB. Never once did they complain about the possibility of losing their jobs. It was first and foremost always about the kids. I know the contract states that the Boys and Girls Club should give priority consideration to the current employee of the sports park, but also I think the city should do everything in their power to find alternative positions for them within the city. Although Jim Coates is probably ready to retire, Sean Kelly and Faye Fernandez are two of the most kind-hearted, dedicated, and loyal employees this city has ever had, and you should do everything in your power to keep them. These fine people are true assets to the community, as is our sports park. Council, I hope you keep a mindful eye on things at Sports Park. Although I know failure amongst the collaboration is not an option, if things aren't done right, it's always a possibility. I hope you hold the Sports Park collaboration accountable for the promises we made to you, to engage the community with events and functions that generate money to put back into the sports park, and to making it more desirable and to promote a better sense of community. Thank you to everyone who believed in the collaboration and supported it. I appreciate it.
That was the only public speaker to slip on this item, so I'm open for council comments. If not, we have a couple of resolutions that would do this, and there is some last minute information that was given to you prior to the meeting. So do we have any thoughts on this? Mr. Patton, Mr. Wilbur, I know you worked with me on this.
Well, you know, the people spoke, we listened. It's a great idea to put this back on the table and look at it, come up with a new plan. Being part of the task force was very rewarding, especially with the outcome that we have for us tonight. I look forward to a great sport venue for that'll serve all the members of our community, and I've talked to a lot of people about this, and I think it's all positive all the way around. So I look forward to watching this grow, and in a year and a half or so when our new budget comes, then I look forward to seeing some good numbers and a lot of kids being served as well as adults. Thank you. Right.
Thank you. Candace, thank you for your very eloquent speech. It was very well said. I'm too glad to see this come back to us, but I do have a couple of comments about the spring class schedule at the sports park. Specifically, I'm getting older, so I'm going to talk about the senior part. Quite honestly, Zumba from 7 to 8, I feel is a little too late. And I know, well, I'm going to bed at 8:30, so that's too late for a senior, I think. And then these other ones, you have 3 others that are yet to be determined. So I'm a little disappointed in that. When we sat down with this, when we started this all out, was really, really hoping to expand on senior recreation and the performing arts, only guitar. So I realize this is the beginning. And so I'm really hoping, maybe that by this time next year, what we're looking at would be 2 or 3 pages long. And I realize that all takes staffing and dollars, but this is a little lean. And then, Mayor, you did speak about our last-minute agenda item that spoke specifically to some positions and employees that was approved by the city and our SEIU. So I just wanted to make that clear that was part of it. I know a couple probably didn't get that part of it, but that was addressed. And that, again, going back to some of Ms. Unger's concerns, so the city did address that part of it. And then I see a representative from Little League here, so I'm going to assume that everybody, that all the players are on the same page with this agreement. Is that correct? Okay. Great.
Well, once again, you know, we seem to have succeeded in getting the community and the city on the same page. This was a much larger issue than the Elm Avenue issue, and much deeper roots and longer and more contentious prelude that has ended up very well. So I'd like to, you know, thank all the people in the community who participated, and for having faith that if they were involved, that something good could come out of this, a good resolution. This is what we really need to do as government and community cooperating to come up with solutions that really work for everybody. And I'm really proud to be an Imperial Beach Council person and witness and support this kind of cooperation and problem solving. Part of the deal is that the city is going to provide $50,000 from the budget to offset power and water costs, and the remaining funds can be used, if it's not all used, for power and water to conduct improvements. Another $10,000 is going to be provided on top of that for scholarships to make sure that lower income IB youth residents can fully participate. I'm really interested in how this $10,000 assurance that there's some sort of balance between the Boys and Girls Club necessary fee structure for them to be able to do this, and not excluding low-income people from the process. I really would be interested in seeing how this works out, because it's very important that everyone in Imperial Beach is able to use the sports park and use these facilities and participate in these programs that you were mentioning, council member, from the schedule there, even if they start a little bit late. At least we want everybody to be able to participate, not be excluded because of income. So I think this is something we're going to need to monitor and keep an eye on how it works. There's not a lot of definition about how this works in the agreement that I was able to pick up. Maybe that's fine, so because it's kind of an experiment. The only thing I'm not happy about, and I'm sorry, Mr. City Manager, to say this, is as a council member, I'm not happy with one aspect of the staff report, and I'm usually very pleased with your staff report. Where it says physical impact, in the front, the first sentence says it's very difficult to accurately assess the physical impact of this action. I understand there's lots of unknowns going forward, but as an elected official that's responsible for to represent the people in the use of their resources, that's a little vague. Normally this section of every report does a pretty clear job of laying out what the risks are. If it doesn't specify the exact cost, it at least lays out where the potential costs might come in if X, Y, or Z happens, or whatever. And I just think that with something this important, where we're actually turning over through these agreements, these two agreements, which are also a good idea to have the two agreements, turning over public property, that we ought to know a little bit more about what the costs associated with that, beyond the 50 and the 10 that I mentioned, are likely to be. So I've thrown you under the bus enough. I'm sorry, but I think we just have to expect that we're going to have a consistently high-quality assessment of fiscal impact, even when there are lots of contingencies that could happen that make any one estimate too much guesswork, because there's several different things that could happen. And we leave it to you to figure out what those contingencies are, and what, because we can't figure them all out. That's what we need you to do. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a fair critique. I think the vagueness there is that at one point there was some discussion about whether or not the floor in the recreation center should be replaced, or whether or not it would be adequate for the needs of the Boys and Girls Club. And we are still assessing whether or not that's the case. And so, again, I just wanted to be real clear that there may be some cost associated with these agreements. But by the same token, the City Council has done a very good job in establishing a fund balance that is meant to go into the Parks and Recreation facility. So the good news is that any costs associated with improving these facilities would not affect the general fund as it's budgeted. But by the same token, it's fair criticism that there's still some unknowns in these agreements.
Well, I'd like to motion that we adopt both of these measures, executing agreement with Boys and Girls Club and Little League and Girls Softball.
Mr. Mayor, can we go ahead and name the resolution numbers with the motion, because that's what the council's doing.
Mr. Patton, I believe you're motioning for resolutions number 2014-7470 and 2014-7471. Is that correct? That's correct. The seconder, you confirm that? Thank you. So we do have a motion and a second on the floor. I'd make one little comment, and I'd like to thank Ken Blissman and at least one of his board members that are here for sticking with us through the process. I think it's been a little bit of time. I think you heard a little bit about the library. There might be relocation. I think you have facilities. You might be able to help accommodate some of the other people in town for temporary, especially now that you have an even larger building down here to manage. And then one of the things that we talked about at the very beginning of this for a revenue stream that might help you out is the United States Navy does not have recreation facilities at Ring Field. I think they are willing, they have within their morale, welfare, and rec funds money to help perhaps pay for some of these leagues that you would do off hours or something, but they're a good source of revenue, I think. So that being said, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Can we please vote?
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Moving on to item 5.5, Mr. Hall.
Okay, Council, I'll just turn the time right over to Mr. Wade, who has an update on the Palm Avenue mixed-use commercial corridor master plan.
Thank you, Mr. Brown, Mayor, Mr. Brown, Mr. Hall. Wait, everyone's throwing you under the bus. Mayor, members of council, we had a brief presentation last week on the Palm Avenue mixed-use and commercial corridor master plan. This is considered the first council briefing as part of our community engagement process, as well as to keep the council informed and apprised of what we're doing with this next phase of the Palm Avenue commercial corridor master plan. Just a little bit of background. This project was conceived well, as part of the big picture Imperial Beach vision plan several years ago, back in 2000, and started with a community-based transportation planning grant, $150,000 from the state. As that name implies, it was the master plan study was a result of significant input from the community. Several workshops were held with business owners, property owners, residents, and commuters, and public interest groups to look at ways in which we can make the Palm Avenue commercial corridor, and by that I mean the Palm Avenue State Route 75 corridor from our boundary with the city of San Diego to our boundary with the city of Coronado, a more pedestrian-friendly, commerce-friendly, business-friendly, and Main Street kind of atmosphere in that area. Those were the objectives. building on a guideline manual that Caltrans actually publishes called Main Street Design Guidelines, and trying to facilitate a more desirable commercial center for the city. We came up with a study that was approved by the City Council in February of 2009, working closely with Caltrans, by the way, to come up with some recommendations. Since that time, we've been trying to seek grant funding to take it into the next phase, which is to take that study and build design drawings sufficient to process an environmental review document and hopefully implement some of those recommendations. Recently, we were awarded excuse me, a Sandag Smart Growth Incentive Program grant in the amount of $400,000 to take this into the next phase. We've matched that with $50,000 of city funds, and we are providing city staff services in the amount of $45,000 to support the effort. As with the first effort, and as with certain projects such as the Elm Street project you talked about earlier this evening, a very important component of this phase is also in a community engagement process. Part of the consultant team selected for this project, headed by project design consultant as the civil engineer, MIG, who was our urban design and landscape architect, who were the lead consultant in the prior effort, and Katz and Associate, Joan Isaacson, who's got much experience in the city of Imperial Beach, most notably working on the commercial zoning review project. We are implementing a very varied community engagement process. To date, we've already launched a web page dedicated to this project on the city's website, imperialbeachca.gov/Palm Master Plan. If you go to the city's website, there's a dedicated tab on the left side below the City Council tab. It's being updated regularly. This meeting was announced in that web page. We've initiated tweets if you're a follower on Twitter, and we've been sending out large amounts of email blasts to our database that we've established over the many years working on a variety of projects, including the commercial zoning review, the Old Palm Avenue Master Plan, Seacoast Drive, just a variety of different efforts. We also have flyers that we are walking to the businesses and property owners on Palm Avenue corridor. I've got some here if anybody wants one. We're also going to upload a copy onto the website. And we have an email address at the web page to which you can send a notification if you'd like to be updated on this project. The other part of this presentation is to announce in this public forum again that we're having our first community workshop about the project on Tuesday, April 29th in the community room here at City Hall at 7 p.m. Everybody's invited to attend. And it's an exciting project. We were very competitive in the grant application process. I frequently get calls from people wanting to be involved, mostly from looking at ways to make it a more pedestrian-friendly environment. We have the Breakwater project, which has been approved and will implement some of these plans. And earlier tonight, there was a discussion about the RTCIP fee increase by statute. And we're looking at potentially matching some of those funds, if possible, to the off-site improvements that will facilitate a better pedestrian and bicycle-friendly environment adjacent to that project. That, of course, would be subject to council approval. And so it's really the next phase of this. It's very exciting. We're happy to be at this point with the funding. We thank Sandag for that, and basically just wanted to update the council and answer any questions you might have. So thank you.
I think this is very good that you're going to come back forth to, not just the community meetings, but to come back and brief the council, because this process isn't overnight, as I gather, right? So I do have one speaker slip. We'll start with that first, Mr. Dedina.
Yeah, Sarah Shadina, 652 Donix Avenue. I just want to say I'm a big supporter of this project. I talked to Greg about it before, and I think with Joan here, one of the consultants, I was kind of a focus group, I think it was like 6 years ago or something like that. So it's great to see this finally come to fruition. Just a couple issues. It'd be good to see the evaluation of what's happened on the kind of west end of Palm Avenue in terms of traffic management. I know that I live on the south side of that street. It's 2 blocks off of Palm Avenue near Carolina. The traffic's backing up Fifth and Carolina in the mornings because people can't, it's hard to make a left turn or right turn because of the compacts. So that might be something to just really make sure that, see if that project really has made traffic better or it's congested traffic more. I know that causes better quality impacts in the neighborhoods. And people are concerned about it in the neighborhood, especially in my neighborhood. There's a lot of comment on that. Number two, I think it's going to be really important to make sure that when we do this project, we really make sure that it doesn't, people are very concerned about traffic right now on Palm Avenue, and they see that half-mile long traffic backup from Saturn all the way back at 4 o'clock, close to the neighbor getting out of work. So I think just to make sure that the traffic numbers are really, really good, and we can really justify that this isn't going to increase traffic, and assuming the whole point is to actually make things nicer. And then finally, the safety aspect is very, very important. I'd just like to ask the council, and I've talked to Greg about this before, though, I'd love to see those crosswalks painted now on 13th, on Florida, and 9th Street. Public facilitation, make sure we have the best sort of public interaction process, and we really work with business owners. I was talking to business owners today, and they're obviously very concerned about the project, but very interested to see what can happen. I encourage them to obviously come to the public workshop. So that's it. Look forward to seeing Palm Avenue really improve aesthetically and safety-wise, and really improve traffic as well. Thank you.
This is informative for us as the council. Do we have some comments? Mr. Spriggs.
I just have a couple issues. I'm going to ask them back to back because one is the last time this came up, 2 weeks, whether it was the last council meeting or the one before that, I can't remember. We spent a lot of time talking about the Route 75 relinquishment question. In other words, where Caltrans, whether or not it's in Imperial Beach's interest to seek the control over that area, over this, the route you're talking about for this project, all of Palm Avenue, essentially 75, within our city boundaries, to have the city control that rather than Caltrans. It seemed as though in our last discussion that relinquishment would be an important prerequisite or an important need if we're going to proceed with this master planning process, because with it would come more autonomy, more leeway for us to add design elements that are more tailored to Imperial Beach's needs as opposed to the throughway needs. So could you comment a little bit on the relinquishment issue and whether that needs to be part of this planning process, or whether we have to do two planning processes, one with and one without? Then I have another follow-up.
Yeah, yes, and appreciate the comments, Mr. Briggs. It was the last council meeting 2 weeks ago. Seems like longer than that to me too. We are looking at this as a concurrent process, quite honestly. As I mentioned last meeting, there has been an official request put in with Caltrans to study the right-of-way for the potential relinquishment, and what that means is they're actively analyzing any improvements that would have to be done, standardized improvements, and the first phase of that has been done, the planning phase, the survey of the route. We have a master plan study that was done with coordination with Caltrans. They've never made any official comment on it, but they have been submitted that study, at least the study put onto a drawing, and we submitted it for review. Our understanding after meeting with them earlier this month is they would have comments on that back to us by the first workshop. So we're expecting comments literally the day before that workshop. So we'll have a good idea at that point of what significant hurdles we might encounter in terms of implementation of everything that's being proposed. And that would likely inform the process. We'll be coming back to the council after the workshop to report on the workshop. Part of this is going to be routinely advising the council of the community engagement process. And it could be that that would, given the report that they're doing, as well as the community input on the proposal and comments received from Caltrans, that may and will inform the council as to what kind of likelihood we see for implementation. If the project as currently envisioned is something the council and community support, and it's going to present significant issues for Caltrans, that will be known within the next month. We won't have the full report from Caltrans as to what it will take in terms of costs and improvements to upgrade it to a specific standard prior to or as a part of relinquishment, but at least we'll know what comments they have about the plan. And again, we'll advise the council. We'll take that into consideration in terms of how important is it to push forward with a plan that we know may have resistance from Caltrans in the event a relinquishment is not proceeded with, and whether or not, in order to get what the plan envisions and what the council and city support, a relinquishment is something that should definitely be considered. So it's a concurrent process, and I think right now we're getting a lot of information, and Caltrans is being very cooperative in terms of providing that information that I think will, in the first 2 to 3 months of this next phase or this project, have a pretty clear idea of where we stand with implementing some of the more creative recommendations. And there's going to be other issues. There's going to be, we're doing parking or traffic modeling as part of this project to actually show what the traffic might look like. So there's going to be a lot of information to absorb, digest, and present back to you. And part of that will be whether or not a relinquishment should be considered if what we ultimately design and support, we being the council and the community, is something that is important enough to proceed with. I think we'll have that answer within fairly quickly.
Thank you for that clear and detailed response. The other, this really flows from what you said, Mr. Wade, the complexity and the amount of analysis and the number of issues associated with the Palm Avenue Master Plan project. Raises kind of another question, and that is, it has to do with our capacity in terms of city staff to engage in a number of initiatives that the council has already prioritized to some degree in the capital budget. We've got the alleyways, we've got street lighting, we've got the Seacoast Drive aesthetic study that needs to be taken to action. And these involve both community planning department and public works. And I'm just a little bit concerned that if we're not careful, we might get overextended, and some of these other priorities that the council has that we're going to need some continuing effort on your part and Mr. Levine's part to move them forward may suffer. So I don't think there's necessarily an answer. I throw it out to you guys to think about, consider, and for Mr. Hall to consider as well, so that we can make progress on all fronts, but which is probably impossible unless it's phased and prioritized. That's right.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. I don't know if you wanted to respond to that, but Palm Avenue Master Plan has been something that we've been dealing with ever since I've been on this council, Mayor, councils before both you and I, and also when I was director of the Chamber of Commerce. Palm Avenue has been something that we have, as a community, grappled with for a very long time. So to me, to be at this point is extremely exciting to finally get, to where we are. It's been in discussion. It's kind of like sports park, just a very long project. My concern, though, Mr. Wade, you spoke to it well, but I just have a couple of points that I want to make on the community engagement. I just want to, and we spoke about this at our last meeting, involving the city of San Diego. It's critical that they are a part of this, and how much they want to become a part of it is up to them, but certainly it needs to be on their horizon. They need to be looking at this. So if they're engaging in any kind of planning efforts themselves, that it could dovetail into what we're doing. That's one long stretch of road. It needs to be cohesive. So they need to be paying attention to what we've got planned for that. Earlier, we did have our president of the Chamber of Commerce, Joanne Barrows. I see that she's gone home, but I was excited to see the chamber here too. This really needs to go to the business community, and I'm not just talking about the business community that ends at 13th Street. Also, we need to be talking about the businesses on Palm Avenue in the city of San Diego. Again, if they've got any kind of renovation, remodeling, or anything going on, they too need to be aware of it. Of course, it goes without saying the Navy needs to be considered as well. And then our Realtors Association, I know their office branches in Chula Vista. But I think that may be another good database for us to be approaching as far as plans that we have and what that can mean to our realtors in the area as well. But this is it's a great base for our community outreach. So that was one of the things that I was concerned about the most. Anyways, again, my excitement level is really high on this one. We waited a long time to get to this point. Thank you.
I'm going to answer one question for you, Ms. Bragg. I did speak with Mayor Faulkner. They mentioned to me what things would affect Imperial Beach, the city of San Diego. Palm Avenue is directly. Councilmember Alvarez has been involved. I understand they might have lost the grant. They were trying to pursue the first one that Greg, Wade, and staff had gotten that started us on this thing with that grant. I know that Greg and company had helped them to kind of plagiarize his own grant so they could get it, but from what I heard, the city of San Diego lost it. I haven't backtracked on it to find out if that's true, but I know the mayor, it's on his radar screen, and we're gonna try to work with them a little bit, from that, at least starting it my direction, so that they're aware of it. And they wanted to basically use the information that we'd already put together the first time out and continue over there in San Diego. So they want to do that. They're looking for the funding too, but if you notice, the city of San Diego's kind of put a lot of money towards infrastructure, so maybe you can help twist them and say this is the area they need to invest. So just to let you know, I did have the opportunity to bring that up.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. I really appreciate your efforts in that area. And as you remember, maybe 12 years ago, that we didn't see any progress on the median on Highway 75 in the city of San Diego section until elected officials got involved in that. And that's back when Byron Ware had that district.
I remember it was, I think Mayor Murphy was there with Mayor Rose when they did that project on the San Diego side.
It
took a lot of
back
pressure
a ways.
from her to get them to do something. They finally did, including having to fix their own irrigation, which they forgot to put in the first time.
Exactly,
So,
exactly. So thank you, Mayor, for your efforts there.
But I think, I too am very excited about this. I think it's the right direction. I really appreciate the fact that you're going to keep us informed all the way through the process. But one of the things that I think I did mention at Mr. Wade, Mr. Hall, is that it seems that one of the transportation world's buzzwords is complete streets. And since we've been extremely successful in what they called originally smart growth and active transportation, and if we have to apply for complete streets, that's where the money's flowing. I think that we should use their buzzwords. So I did mention it to Mr. Wade, and the other thing that had come up when they were talking about what I think are buzzwords, and that was Caltrans people, which are the guys with the money, is mobility hubs, which might really fit on Palm Avenue, because from our standpoint, it is a mobility hub. It's got the transit system on it, as well as accommodating a lot of car traffic, and it should be able to accommodate some of the other type of transportation needs. So maybe that's another one to include in our thought process when we go forward. Because I think you're all aware that we're not getting anywhere to get the brick and mortar part of this project, which could be extremely expensive. But over the years, that's what we've done, is plan and be ready for it. And along with this one, the staff has done a great job. They sharpened their pencil the second time they apply for something, make it a little bit better, and finally we get the funding to help us do these things. So I'm excited about it too. Any other comments? You're just keeping us informed of this, right? No action taken by us? Really good. Let's move on. Moving on to 5.6, Mr. Hall.
Mayor and Council, this is a resolution 2014-7468 affirming the fiscal year sewer service charge rates for sanitary sewer. It's proposed that we increase the sewer rates by 1.6%. This is consistent with a multi-year increase that was studied and approved by the council on May 15th, 2013. So with that, I will turn some time over to Mr. Levine, and he can walk you through some of the particulars of this resolution.
Could I interrupt here for a minute, Mr. Hall? I understand that at the last meeting, Mr. Bilberry thought that we should have a full council because it was a rate increase affecting everybody. But it might be because this is something we did back in 2013, saying that this is the method we were going to go forward. If Mr. Bilberry or some other member of the council has some questions that deal directly with that, because my remembering was that we weren't willing to put a full rate increase back in 2013. We thought it was fair to move it in over time. So I thought that other than the procedural part of coming back now with it, unless one of us has a real problem with it, and I think Mr. Bilberry, you might have some thoughts, and maybe some others.
Yes, sir. Appreciate that. Just have maybe Hank or Andy can answer a couple questions of how are our sewer bills calculated?
They are based on the water consumption for the period April 1 through March 31. Yes, the water consumption by Callahan water meters for 1 year. And the residential units are charged, they're provided a 25% of their water usage would go to landscape, so it's not part of the billing calculation. And then for commercial, it's 90% or 10% go to irrigation, which is not part of the billing. So if you had 100 units of water, and you were residential, you would be charged for 75 units of water at a rate of, let's say it's $1 a unit, so you'd have $75 bill. If you were commercial, you had 100 water units, you would be charged for 90 water units, because 10% would be accepted as going to landscape, so you'd be paying $90 at $1 a unit. I'm just giving you an example.
I appreciate that, and that's why I wanted to pull this. Was I know in 2013 we set this fee schedule up, but I'm not really comfortable with the way that we have how we calculate our sewer bills. Because I mean, basically what we're doing is a lot of the burden is going on the residential. 25% is pretty low for somebody who wants to upkeep their lawn. And a couple of my neighbors come up to me, and I know one of my roommates, I guess you could call them. You know, their bills have gone up substantially, $400, $600 a month, or a year, I should say. And I'm not really comfortable doing this rate increase until we really sit down and take a look at an alternative way of billing. I know that Chula Vista has a whole schedule fee. I believe they go off of the lowest 2 months in winter, I believe. And Coronado has an entire hotels are different, and residential is completely different. I think we really need to sit down and take a look at it, because let's really call this what this is. This is a water conservation tool, and this fund is not meant to be used for that purpose. It's supposed to be meant for maintaining our sewer lines.
So, Mr. Bilberry, I mean, I understand. Maybe is our timing critical that we take action this month on this?
We need to give the residents 30 days notice before the rate increase. And the rate increase is effective July 1. So we're pushing.
What I was wondering is if there's a chance, because I understand what Mr. Bilberry is asking for, if we could ask you to bring back something, I mean, I know other cities do it differently and some of them do it through their water districts and, you know, so, because if what he's saying, I'd like to see, I know there's 18 cities in San Diego County, I don't know how many different water districts there's, but probably like 45. But could we do perhaps a comparison of at least those cities south of Highway 8 and how they do their sewer calculations? And that might give Mr. Bilbray an idea of where he thinks we should or shouldn't go.
I mean,
timing
if directed, I can, but I think it's going to take me a lot of time.
Levine, that we were basing it only on winter month usage. For some reason, I go way back when, maybe when I first moved here, I'm not sure, but I thought that that's what the calculation was during the winter months and how much usage, so you took into consideration people didn't need to water lawns as much during the winter months, but now you're telling me it's a year round. And that's with the
we are using a pretty standard methodology for the state of California and probably beyond the boundaries of our city. There are a number of different ways to do it. In the city of San Diego, where I live, as I understand it, they take 5 or 6 months of the winter time, and whatever my water usage is for those 5 or 6 months is what I'm billed against. I don't get the 25% reduction. There are some standard methodologies. This methodology has been relatively consistent with what we've done in prior years. I had understood that we, prior to this revenue study, we were giving a discount for discount. We were saying 25% of the water went into landscape, so you were charged. But once Karen Keys, the consultant, looked at it, she said that wasn't how the last one was done. So we are giving credit for this 5-year study. Was the prior year we were not giving that credit before. I'm not sure where to go but there are a number of methods that are out there. This is fairly consistent with what we have done. It is consistent with many other cities. It's pretty common practice.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and ensure the other council questions. Ms. Bragg, did you have your question? Okay. Mr. Spriggs.
Thanks for the report, and I need you to help me kind of understand your sense of urgency around moving this forward right now a little bit more. But I'm also looking at the numbers in the analysis on the report, and if I read this right, the average rate increase of 1.6% is going to generate $1,975,000, almost $976,000. Yet, the costs that you're estimating that's going to be applied against is almost exactly the same amount, $1,910,000.
No, my staff report is obviously very misleading.
Okay, well this is what I need help
maybe,
understanding. Thank you.
So maybe what I would like to see, perhaps if the council supports it, is have a little bit further discussion, talk about the rates that other people charge, and then let's talk about a little bit about the expenditures of our sewer enterprise funds, because we've been so concerned about maintaining our general fund that if from a council level, we might not have been paying as much attention to the enterprise fund. Because it's not just paying the metro system to transfer our stuff to Point Loma, we have to maintain it. And one of the things I know personally is you've maintained our system to a level that keeps us out of a lot of trouble, which I see other cities don't have the same advantage. So maybe if Mr. Hall and the council agrees to it here, we can come back, talk a little bit about the way we charge, but also where this money goes.
Right, but Mr. Mayor, I would like to get a little bit better understanding of the two things that I was asking about from Mr. Levine.
We have to bring that back with the
Yeah,
next one.
we could, but there's, yeah, we will, fine. But I just want to follow-up so that I don't lose sleep between now and then.
Yeah, and maybe I can even.
So what I see here is thus, in the middle of the page, there's a capital reserve of 1.975. And right under that, in the same bullet, the next bullet is the capital project designed or to be constructed during the same period is 1.910. I mean, do those numbers have any relationship to each other?
Yeah, maybe I can explain a little bit. What the city council has done is you've established a minimum fund balance that you always want to keep in the enterprise fund of $2 million. What we currently actually have as a fund balance in the sewer department is $3.9 million. But we have $1.9 million of capital projects that we plan to do over in the foreseeable future, which essentially brings it down to that $2 million. And so it says that if you read it the right way. If you turn it sideways and stand on your head, it says that we will maintain the $2 million fund balance. Now,
okay, because that first paragraph there was pretty good numbers. So.
Sure.
But then I went right to what I could understand, which is the two bullets I just mentioned.
Correct.
So,
and then if you look, and what this is really all about, and what the study shows, and the numbers reflect that, is that our O&M budget is about $300,000 higher than what our revenues are producing. So there's a gap there that needed to be filled, and that's why we did the study. And that 1.6% increase over the next 5 years is to close that operating gap. Right now, we have a structural gap in our sewer department, and that's what the increase in the rates will fix.
Okay, and it will fix it. We don't need more than that.
That's what the study indicates.
Okay. So then the other question, Mr. Levine, is we're thinking about having to come back in the next council meeting. What problem does that cause you? If we don't have
I am prepared, if you're willing to take a few more minutes, to maybe show you a calculation that is trying to put the numbers in a format that this staff report apparently doesn't do, which will show you what the city manager has just said, is that we have a revenue shortfall. And if we don't follow what the study suggested, that shortfall is going to increase, or we're going to stop doing capital projects in order to do it.
I'm sorry, Mr. Levine. I mean, I believe what you're saying, and you might, at this late hour, be able to clarify it for us. The question is, do we have to go through this tonight, or can we do it in 2 weeks when we'll be fresher and you'll have the numbers ready so that we can readily see them rather than listen?
I will do everything I can to make sure that I have as much information as I can get.
That's not going to cause any harm in the cash flow process? Or
No. This is for next fiscal year starting July 1.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot.
So do I have concurrence in the council that we bring this back to the next city council meeting? Have some questions that Mr. Bilbray brought up, some Mr. Spriggs. And I don't think it's going to be very in-depth, because I think that when perhaps Mr. Levine has, you have to maintain the system no matter what. It's not, forget paying your metro buddies. We got to maintain it, because we don't get fined like the rest of these cities do, so that keeps us out of trouble. That's what the money is for, the funds. Ms. Bragg?
Thank you. The only piece of information that I would like, that I believe was provided to us initially, was the what the rate increase would be shown on their bill in each class. So how much more would each, like residential be paying? How much more would commercial be paying? What that 1.6 would look like on their bill? Just as a refresher.
Recognize, please, that the 1.6% is against the rate. So if my rate is $1 now, and so it's going to be $1.02, and I use less water, I'm probably going to have less expense. If I use more water, I will have more expense. So it will not relate specifically to an increase or a decrease in your water bill. It's based on the amount of water each customer uses.
Water consumption.
So it's not it's not one of those that I can go to the homeowner, the user, the customer, and say, your bill is going to increase by 4%, because I don't know what their water usage is. For instance, the revenue studies suggested that we would receive 4.2 plus mil in revenue this current year that we're in. Because of the water usage and the distribution to the customers, and how that our actual revenue that was billed is a little over 4 mil. So we were roughly $2 million, $200,000 short of what was estimated in the study. You know, we're homeowners, businesses, all of us are looking to try to conserve water in various different ways, through utility fixtures, through our landscape watering. So it's all an estimate, you know, and what's happening is the revenue that we're getting is tending to go down. In large part, I think, is because there's less water usage. We look at the water usage by citywide across the last 5 or 6 years. The water usage from the CalAm data is, on average, decreasing.
All right, thank you.
We'll bring this back for discussion.
Yes, sir.
Next meeting. Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 5.7, Mr. Hall.
Mayor and Council, this is one of our policy discussions where we have a chance to just talk about potential implementation of new policies of the City Council before we draft any kind of resolution or before we come to any final conclusions. And in a previous meeting, we talked about creating some different boards, commissions, and committees for the city. And one of the ones that you asked us to bring back as soon as possible would be the Parks and Recreation Committee. And so, again, I want to emphasize that this is just a discussion. We put forward some ideas and some suggestions to give the council maybe a basis to start from. But as you can see in the first page of your staff report, we're suggesting perhaps a 7-member committee that would consist of 2 youth members that could be either suggested or selected and presented to this body or to the mayor by the principal of Mar Vista High School. One change I would suggest is that I had suggested that we have 1 senior citizen selected by the Imperial Beach Senior Citizens Director. Upon looking at that, the Senior Citizens Director is actually an employee of the city, a part-time employee. We should not have employees making any kind of appointments. And so I would suggest we change that to being appointed by the mayor with the advice and consent of the council. Perhaps a representative of the Boys and Girls Club, since they are involved in the sports park now, as well as a representative from the Imperial Beach Little League or Girls Softball League, and then some residents at large, and that would be selected by the mayor, and again with the advice and consent of the council. And that's just a potential makeup. It could have more members, it could have less. Again, we look forward to discussion and direction from the city council. But maybe more importantly are the next 2 items, and one would be the committee authority. One of the things we want to make real clear is that staff is suggesting that the Parks and Recreation Committee be a committee and that it be a recommending body to the city council for final decisions, and that they not have final decision authority, but rather provide recommendations. And then perhaps the most important thing is, what is the purview of the community? What are they formed for? And what is the extent of their reach? Because as you know, every organization tends to have at some level some mission creep and maybe go in directions that would be not anticipated by the city council. And so we put down maybe some suggested purview, which would be to review the sports and recreation programs of Imperial Beach to encourage increased participation, to have high-quality volunteers, relevant and effective programming, efficient use of municipal resources, and just general overview of the recreation program. To review the condition and maintenance of our facilities, to seek funding, maybe grants and other things for the recreation programs, to identify opportunities to expand parks and recreation in Imperial Beach and surrounding areas, and then to take a holistic approach to parks and recreation for activities of all ages. I think Councilwoman Bragg spoke about that earlier. Make sure we're remembering the senior citizens as well as the youth. We concentrate on the youth a lot, but there's a lot of segments of our community that we should consider. And then also to seek to provide a positive alternative for the spare use of time. I mean, what can we do to make sure that we're engaging our residents and especially our youth in activities that are perhaps better for the community than what they might otherwise have. So maybe to put a little bit of a capsule on what their purview would be. And so we talk, again, this is an opportunity for you to provide input to us as we start to put together some policies and resolutions for you to consider at a future meeting of creating a recreation committee.
So I'd like to start right off, and we do have a speaker slip from Candy Andrews says support, but don't need to speak this evening. Thank you. And we had a letter from Tim O'Neill. He had some suggestions on it. The one thing that I saw on his thing, and I think it was discussed by some members of the council even, is a community-wide needs assessment, or actually an inventory of what we have that might be underutilized or might be overutilized. I don't know, but I think that's important to include in whatever we do with this committee. I think this committee is something we should put together, especially with other actions we do. Definitely, I think 7 members would be fine. I think that the recommendation of sticking with our municipal code to ask for applications to the city, the mayor brings them to the council for your basically ratification of that thing, and then to utilize the Boys and Girls Club, the leagues, and the local schools to provide staffing for that, because to try to reach out, including the senior centers, Ms. Bragg. I mean, we'll get some representation from everybody. I think this is the right thing to do, and I think that we could support that. I think that recreation is something we all care about, and let's see what we can do more with what we have. I think that's the real goal.
Maybe Mr. Hall can answer. When we were at the with the task force, I thought, at least it was out on the table, that there was going to be maybe an outside source doing some sort of need assessment of kind of similar to this.
Yeah, there are companies and organizations that help you do needs assessments and surveys and those kinds of things. I think what we could do, perhaps, again, it depends on how the council wants to set up the committee, but we could use that committee as a sounding board to review that information, make sure that it feels right, that it feels like what we're seeing in Imperial Beach prior to bringing it to the city council for actual action.
Parameters,
yeah, kind of a sounding board, if you will.
Ms. Bragg?
Thank you. I have a couple of questions and a few points I'd like to make. As far as Mr. O'Neill's last minute agenda item information, I do have to agree with him for a representation by the school district. I think that's a good idea.
I think Mr. Hall had it in there.
Okay.
And students for the school district, which I thought was very important.
I'm not sure I'm necessarily talking about students.
Oh,
here.
you want,
Yeah.
you would think an actual member of the school district or the school.
PE coach, somebody who's got, who does that for a living, who is recreation minded and athletic minded, might be a good idea. I wonder about the selection criteria for the youth from the high school, and does it have to be just Mar Vista High School? And again, Mr. Hall, I would have to agree with you on the senior center appointment. And I have a question of a representative from the Boys and Girls Club and Little League. Since we have a contract with them, is that a conflict of interest that we have to be careful of? No? City attorney shaking her head no. Okay, that's good. And then the 2 residents of Imperial Beach selected by the mayor, what would be our application process? What would be the criteria from those people that we're looking for?
You know, that's, again, these are suggestions. This is just, random thoughts from a warped mind.
These are just random thoughts in response to those random.
But yeah, in response to perhaps having someone from the school districts involved, maybe that could be one of the 2 residents, and that might change over time in the advice that you give the mayor as we start to put together these applications and accept these applications. we can talk about, and the makeup may change. The idea, I suppose, I had about having the principal of Mar Vista High School, I suppose I would think that either the mayor or myself would meet with the principal and say, look, maybe have a male and a female that represents the school, maybe has high grades or the class presidents or something, just to make sure that, you know, I hate to say it, but, you know, I tint my hair gray so I look a little more distinguished and old, but the reality is I'm old. And I probably am not in touch with what the kids want these days, so we certainly want to make sure we get their input. I would hate to, you know, if it was left up to me, every kid would only play basketball, football, and baseball, because that's what I did. But I know that they're into a lot of other things that someone told me the other day the big thing now is pickleball, and I don't even know what that is. I just know that it's done on tennis courts and it's painted different. I don't even know what that means, but I know it's a big deal to some people. It's becoming quite a sport. So I think it would just keep it relevant if we had some high school.
Okay,
That's
I
the only
agree
reason
with
it's on
that.
there.
I'm all for that. I'm not done. I had a couple more points. Thank you for waiting. Under committee purview, number 5, you know, that the holistic approach is very attractive to me. And certainly, you know, there's a whole segment of our community that is disabled. And I have a friend who has grandchildren that are autistic. And so involving those children, they deserve recreation opportunities too, and they flourish with recreation opportunities. So I really appreciate that one. And then under committee funding, I'm very confused on that very last paragraph, where it says, however, it is anticipated that most, if not all, of the funding for the activities of the committee would be focused on capital improvements or facility maintenance. What does that mean?
Well, for instance, we were talking a little bit earlier, and that's where recreation always gets a little bit fuzzier than some of the other things you do. There was a lot of discussion back and forth about whether or not we should replace the floor at the sports park, at the recreation center. Now, it's very likely that the Boys and Girls Club would say, sure, absolutely. If the city's paying for it, we want a new floor. But it might be nice to have a committee say, well, let's run it by the committee. Let's see what kind of programs they want to run. Is it really necessary that we replace the floor in the gym? Or is the floor in there okay? And it allows someone that is representative of the community rather than the actual benefactor of the improvement to provide a recommendation to the city council when you're trying to make decisions of whether or not to spend $200,000 or $300,000 to put in a wood floor, where right now it's a concrete floor. That's a significant expense, and we just want to make sure that, you know, there's some input from the community and maybe one of these committees to flush that out a little bit while we're trying to make those very expensive decisions.
Okay, are we asking this committee to raise funds for that, or just recognize?
To make recommendations,
Okay.
to hear suggestions,
Okay.
make recommendations to the council.
I wasn't clear on that, and I thought, gosh, if I was on a committee and I was going to be asked to
For
bring
instance,
funds,
they might
Concrete
need
floor,
some
disappointing.
funding to take a bus over to another facility. If said, hey, let's go look at this new. I think the chief was trying to push frisbee golf on me the other day. Let's go look at this frisbee golf setup and how it looks.
That's big.
So they might need some funding to go do some field trips and things like that.
Mr. Bilbrey?
I just had a comment about the kids on the committee being from Mar Vista. You know, I didn't really have a choice to go to Mar Vista or not. I basically was forced to go up to Coronado or, you know, during elementary school. So I'd like to make sure that we open it up to all the kids in Drill Beach that want to do it. And I know it might be a little bit difficult trying to figure out the qualifications of the kids that aren't, you know, around the principal sort of thing, but I'd like to at least make that an option for the kids.
Then maybe we don't tie that with the high school. Maybe we keep it with the mayor with the advice and consent of the council. But you could advise the mayor that we would like to have youth representation.
Or possibly go down, for the first step, go down to the middle school, the new middle school, the IB charter. Then work your way.
I think I've talked to the principal at Mar Vista, potentially with our youth project, about ways to get youth input. And he has some ideas that would involve possibly having one of their one or more of their students be advisory to this council. I think so this to me is a possibility. I mean, we'd have to be kind of thoughtful about what we want and expect these folks to do. And therefore, you know, how they're selected. I mean, it's what they're gonna do that drives who they are and how they're selected. And this list of 6 items, I think, is a great discussion piece. But it's a heck of a lot. And I would taking this stuff, I would say that your best panel would be a bunch of recreation experts, okay, that represent the community's interests, and yet they've got some real background in recreation and can provide proper, not oversight, but can understand what's going on with the leagues, can understand how they're working, and can understand what's going on with the Boys and Girls Club, can look at the charges, look at, you know, how much improved use there is of the sports park as a result of this, and make some informed recommendations. I mean, if you take these things, that's a pretty high level kind of function. And we have to really make a decision whether we want everybody on that to be from Imperial Beach, or whether we, you know, once we open it up to, let's say, someone from the school district, we may as well open it up even further. I'm not inclined to want to do that because I think, you know, if we do that, it means we want to professionalize the board. Because if you bring one professional in and the other folks are lay folks, they're not going to be able to interact in a way that's going to have an even resolution of issues, you know, that they may have. They'll be giving deference to the person who's a recreation expert. So I think this has got a lot of little nuances in it that we need to think about, and that's what the whole purpose of this discussion is. The other thing is, where do they get their information? Typically, an advisory board has an operational CEO of some kind that they're advisory to. You know, if they were, as opposed to the city manager, who's not really involved at all in the operations. So this kind of contradicts what I was saying a few months ago, where the initial proposal was that the advisory board be appointed by Boys and Girls Club and would basically be advisory to them. And I mean, I could see that kind of thing making some sense in terms of the input that the Boys and Girls Club gets, but it doesn't help us as a city government or a city council that much. So a board would normally get factual reports, updates, information to chew on from whoever the CEO is or whoever the head of the organization is that they're overseeing. So in this case, we would expect that for this to work, the two league
can I ask something as far as what we're thinking of? Maybe I'm getting a little confused here. I thought if we go back a little bit, recreation opportunities in the city of Imperial Beach, we dealt with something called Sports Park today. We didn't deal with the Boys and Girls Club facility at the other end of Veterans Park. We didn't deal with the fact that Wes Braddock, the principal at Mar Vista, has enormous amount of recreational facilities, and he wants to get them out there and be used more. We have 6 elementary schools out there that have properties. What opportunities we have, I don't envision this as being sports park. I look at this as being, what can we do in Imperial Beach to be more recreation oriented, more recreation facilities within the limited, we don't have any land. we might have to get other folks to do it. But, I mean, I thought it was more.
I think that's fair. That's a good, maybe, we do need that. But we also need to keep an eye on our agreement that we just approved tonight. We need something that's gonna enable citizen input, the kind that led to the agreement, to continue to, maybe not the same people, but some sort of feedback as to whether it's working or not. So I have to admit, that's what I was thinking, that's the missing element from from the two agreements that we have, is that there's really no citizen oversight of this new arrangement that could provide advice to us or advice to the parties.
So looking on those same lines though, because I have a little separate committee that's just overlooking the agreements we just established today. If within the purview of this committee was to evaluate the performance of what's going on at the sports park every so many months, 6 months, whatever it might be, but that would be number 7 on the list, is what's within their purview, is to perform that evaluation in accordance with the contracts that we have out there or whatever, so that would be our input, was from this committee to say, we're seeing that, Don Spicer and company are doing a lot better job in the ball fields than we ever did as a city before. I'm being facetious, I know that. But, and come back and say that, we don't have to worry about the maintenance of the fields of what he's doing out there, but then Ken and the Boys and Girls Club forgot to do something on the, stuff like that. Those type of inputs could be part of the purview of this committee, but also look at the bigger picture of what recreation is here.
Yeah,
I think too much.
That is adding too much to, it was already too much, as far as what we can realistically expect a citizens group of volunteers without much staff support.
I'm going to break out and do something real weird. Mr. Spicer, could you come up to the microphone, please? Yeah, we want to get you a permanent seat here. Is that okay? From somebody that does things as you do now, and you looked at this agenda report, I'm sure, because that's why you're sitting through the end of the meeting, I'm sure, too. What do you see if you were a member of a committee such as this, along with 6 other members that could include youth and, school district, whatever they might be? What would you see, and do you see this as being overly reaching for one group of people, or what's your thoughts?
Well, I think in our meetings, we talked about a committee, forming a committee, having a representative from all the leagues in the Boys and Girls Club, the city, and the school. And I think that you could get a lot of information. And then all that information has to be digested and then thought about and then maybe brought back to the city council. As far as the agreements, each of us are going to monitor ourselves. Right off the get-go, you're not doing a good enough job. So that's going to be a monitor from the Boys and Girls Club, softball, and baseball. So we're going to be monitoring ourselves, as I'm sure the city is.
But let's say this committee was established the way Mr. Hall put it together. You would, let's say it was yourself instead of somebody else that you wanted to put on there. You would be part of this committee that then, if we wanted to task it, is bringing back a report to the council on a regular basis to how the committee feels the performance of the sports park recreation facility in general, including the ball fields and the Boys and Girls Club part. I mean, would you feel that was beyond the capability of a committee such as this? Or?
No, I think that would be part of that committee. I mean, it has to be a representative from those that are involved in it.
We're right, but we also want community representatives too.
Exactly.
We want to have your critics there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's how you get an honest answer. I'm going to tell you we're doing good. We might not be doing so good.
That's why there's 6 other members on that thing.
Exactly. And then everybody has a voice.
Well, and I should point out that the agreements, the way they're written now, the Little League, girls softball, and Boys and Girls Club have to meet with the manager on a monthly basis. And we're going to go over whether or not we believe they're expanding our programs, involving the seniors, or involving the youth, or whatnot. So Right, that's in the agreement. That's the way that works now. So,
But you're not gonna be out there, checking out how things are going on.
correct.
It'd be good to know that some high school kid doesn't think you're doing a good job. That's what it was.
So I think that there's some good points brought up here, and one of them was that we started going through the different facilities that we have in the community, and there's simply more than the sports park. There's camp surf, there's activities at the beach, a lot of things we haven't even talked about at this point. And perhaps what this committee needs to even have is some subcommittees, a couple of them that are kind of watching the sports park, and a couple that are kind of watching over what's happening on the waterfront, maybe a couple that are happening, whatever that is. But again, I think that the key here is that we want to make sure that if we're learning from mistakes of the past, what we want to do is make sure that we've reached out to the community, we've heard, we've contacted, we've vetted, we've done some of that stuff before it gets to this meeting, before it gets to this room, so that you're getting recommendations from a committee that has heard all of that input and all of that concern and whatnot. So there's, I was talking to someone earlier today, and I don't remember where it was. I was talking about how these are great discussions, because we have policy discussions where we can kind of shoot information back and forth. But in reality, council meetings are not a very good forum for getting information from the public, because anybody stands up and says something, you can't even react to it. If it's not on your agenda that you thought about a week ago, you can't even answer them, and they get very frustrated. So one of the things that these committees, I hope, will help do is they can have open dialogue, and they can sit around the table and talk about things. That this meeting is just not set up for community interaction. And a lot of people say, well, you need to be more transparent and answer our questions. You can't. If someone comes up to the pulpit tonight and asks you a question that wasn't on the agenda, you can't address it. And sometimes that becomes very frustrating. So I hope what this committee does is it allows us to bring you better information that has been vetted out better than showing up at a council meeting and saying, okay, we got to do something different for recreation. Because someone said it earlier tonight, what we're doing here is an experiment. I have all the trust in the world of what's going to happen here. But the reality is these agreements are set up, and they're relatively short term in the first go-around. They end in June 30th of 2015. I hope before then we've got a committee that can come and judge what's happening in our recreation program and come back to you and make recommendations, rather than, engage in another bloodbath like we did before. And perhaps it's continuation, maybe it's modification, maybe it's something, a whole new idea. But I do think that, again, I'm not pushing for this committee. I'm pushing for community input and a better way to get you community dialogue than in this meeting. It's very difficult in a council meeting.
But I thought that as a council, we said, let's attempt to go forward with the Parks and Recs committee first. We knew that the concept is right. This is the one we said, let's try this one first. And I guess what Andy's asking from us is kind of the layout that he's got. Is that going to work a little bit? Might take a little tweaking. I think Ed brought up a lot of concerns about too much on it. I'm glad, Don, that you mentioned it. You think it could be worked out. And you're right, you have a contract. You have to live up to the contract too. But I think it is a way for us to engage. And maybe the makeup of it, when you bring it forward, we have to take some real action on it versus just a discussion on it. Maybe we need to go a couple more people on there because we're expecting them to do a little more, and we got to give them a little chance to have a little more background or something. So maybe it is a 9-member committee instead of a 7. I mean, we don't want to get too big because it gets a little bit hard to manage, but the more sometimes on the professional sides in there, whether it be somebody from the school, district, athletic director type or something, I don't know.
I can say, like, when we had the committee, it was Andy and Patton and Mr. Robrey, all of us met. We had the softball, we had the coalition, we had some good discussion. And you walk out there and like, I wasn't in a meeting, something was accomplished.
Yeah.
Usually you have meetings and nothing's accomplished. You come home and you might not even go to that meeting. But, I mean, if we had a committee like that, where it can be a representative from the city council, the city manager, we have to report to him every 30 days or meet with him in 30 days. I'm sure if we had issues that we would.
I think what we were looking at maybe, and we got confused, is the contract that we established today. but we actually appreciate the input of the Little League and the softball leagues. As far as looking at it, you deal with a lot of youth, you know, from all over our community. So it's the input, not necessarily, we don't want to just hear about your Little Leagues every meeting, right? But you deal with folks all the time. And you're out there, and I think that's really what it is. I think the question that one of the council members brought, how do we select it? I can tell you honestly, I hope that we get a lot more applications for something like this than we have in some of the other communities we've had in the past. It's hard to fill some of these spots. We've gotten one applicant for one opening. It's not like you have a lot of choice sometimes, you know? And so hopefully this one generates enough interest that we can do that and look at, you know, boil down to saying, well, you know, I think this guy over here is nice, but I like you better, so I picked you. Why? Because I had two choices instead of one.
See, I think just like if you heard of pickleball, and that's what the committee would do, is let's check on, let's see what that is, a new kids ad that we can incorporate into the park or into something. I mean, I didn't hear of it. I'll be asking the kids, hey, what's pickleball? I don't know.
Yeah, it's like they toss the pickle. It's like a baseball basically. And they toss it and you try and hit it. And I think you have to try and hit it over the net or something like that. From what I understand, it's kind of a college thing. Yeah, it's like it's a real pickle. Yeah, I don't know. I know it's just a full.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to further clarify, because Council Member Bragg brought up the conflict issue, and I was looking at this as an agenda item, as a Parks and Rec committee that I've seen in other communities, which is broad. It's all encompassing of the city. So if you do get down to the narrow issue of just evaluating these agreements, I would have to potentially analyze some conflict issues if there were.
But I don't think that's really where we're going.
Right, so I just wanted to clarify that it's not, I didn't, you know, I shook my head at that because I was thinking, sure, these people could be appointed because I'm thinking this is a holistic committee looking at all the Parks and Rec activities. If we're getting down to evaluating these agreements, which wasn't what I was envisioning because the agreements already have mechanisms for that, then we would have to potentially analyze some conflicts at that point. So just to bring that to your attention, and I'll work with the city manager before this comes back for approval of an ordinance, so.
Any other thoughts on this? Mr. Hall, do you have enough info?
I just had a closing comment. I think this is a good framework. I think this is what we were looking for. I think it's a good framework for the committee. They have their agenda, you know, it will be up to them to select a chairman, probably, you know, have their agenda at each meeting. Personally, I would like to see, you know, number one on their, on the committee purview really strikes me as, you know, let's assess what we have, what properties do we have, what partners do we have, what can we do, and then kind of go from there. This is, I mean, some of these items on here are going to be ongoing. They're going to be discussing these items at every single one of their meetings, I am sure. So again, I just think it's a great framework, Mr. Hall, for us to move forward on this. It's kind of a parallel track with our contracts, but still bifurcating it. This is not assessing the contract. This is assessing our Parks and Rec opportunities. Yes.
Question. Have we looked at the old city ordinance on this? Or our previous?
I did not. You know, I just put it together for discussion. I did not review it.
I think we should at least take a look at it. I mean, it could be at least a framework. I mean, we do have a framework here and we've given you comments, so maybe trying to incorporate that into it might work a little bit, and it might help us try and give our, you know, give a little bit of a basis of how to choose certain candidates.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe right out of the gate, well, I think that's a great suggestion to look at the policy we already have. But right out of the gate, if that doesn't provide clear guidance, one of the things maybe we should suggest is that for the initial makeup of the committee, maybe we just have it with the mayor with the advice and consent of council. And that way you can kind of frame at least the committee that you're thinking of in your minds the first time out of the gate. And certainly you could give the advice to the mayor that, hey, consult the high school principal and consult the middle school principal and whatnot, but leave it in the hands of this body to formulate the committee. Maybe that's easier than what I tried to do here. I think that's one of the complicating things is how you choose this committee. Let's have you guys choose the committee. Maybe that's the right thing to do.
It's going to be a dynamic group, and it's going to be ever changing, and it has to be, you know. We may find that, you know, as as the days go by or the meetings go by, that there's tweak after tweak after tweak to affect this, but I think it's definitely a great thing.
Well, I think you brought up another good point. Normally, we have people serve certain terms, and this doesn't talk about terms. But I think on a committee like this, you want a lot of turnover, fresh ideas, new ideas and whatnot. So we'll try to keep that in consideration too. It's good to have some longevity, but it's nice to have some maneuvering in that committee too as things change. No, it's very helpful. Appreciate your comments and suggestions.
This is our last item. Any other thoughts on this item? Not seeing any. We will adjourn the meeting. Thank you all.